Tu peux
Oui,
mettre ta
bonsoir.
vidéo si tu veux. Oui, bonsoir.
Okay. Well, I think,
Ok, namaskar.
Namaskar.
is that
Ok.
Gilbert?
Moi, je m'appelle
Yes,
Gilbert
it's
Ega.
Gilbert.
Je viens du Bénin, actuellement en Allemagne. Je suis un nouveau dans le groupe. Merci.
Bon. Merci. So, Valerie, shall we start
Yes. Okay. Yes.
the program?
You know that
Oops. Valerie, the mic is, can you reactivate your mic, please?
Oh, sorry. I sent you the PowerPoint that that you had sent me with translation. So it's every 2 pages there is a translation, every 2 slides. And I also put in one document like the French translation on the top and the English. So if you want to share your, I don't know, it's an idea. You share your screen. You could go in between English and French slides. If you use my PowerPoint,
Okay. I'm just going to see if I can.
open it.
Yeah, let me see. Oh, okay. So is it possible I can get the share screen for myself?
I think
Yes, you are a co-host, so
Yeah.
you can share your screen.
Okay. Well, let me just see if I can actually get to my thing. So share screen, I'm trying that. Can you see my article now,
Yes. Yes.
Microvita and their roles?
Yes.
Okay, let me now look for the PowerPoint. Can you see the PowerPoint now?
Not yet. I think you.
Do I have to stop share and then go share again?
Well, there is a possibility to have.
Yes, we can
the,
see.
Files that you choose. You can move from one to the other, or you'd select only one. But there is a possibility. If you select when you share screen the one on the top left, and that's the one that allows you to jump from one page to the other. I'm not 100% sure, but you could try. You could stop sharing and reshare and share. Do you understand what I said? On top left.
Let me see.
Yeah.
So there's my article now. When you say top left.
You have to start sharing again, and instead of picking up the one that you chose earlier, you can have several. You can go from one to the other.
Okay.
Share
So
screen and
top left.
yeah,
Oh.
first you have to share screen and select
Okay.
on your files.
Let me just share. Now I'm sharing the screen. Now my article is there.
Okay, we don't see it right now. You have to select and confirm or something. I forgot.
Yeah, we have to figure this out. I'm back in the Zoom meeting now. Now, if I say share screen.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Oh, so now there's my article.
We can see it, yeah. But we can, it's only one, but it's not PDF, it's a Word article.
That's the article.
Yes, okay.
And now if I, to go to PDF, if I do this, does that do anything for you?
No.
It doesn't.
No.
Okay. Well, let me just, I think I'm going to, because I
think you have the slides already integrated in your
yeah, I have the slides integrated, and I'll just go slowly, I think, because, and
yeah.
so people, I think, will be able to follow along. And I'm just, some people will require a translation. Is that correct?
Est-ce qu'il faut traduire? Est-ce qu'il y a besoin d'une traduction? Demande Rudresha. Est-ce que quelqu'un a besoin d'une traduction? Does anybody need a translation?
Non, pour l'anglais, ça va chez moi, il n'y a pas de souci.
Et pour les autres? Pour les autres personnes?
Oui, Namaskar, on a besoin d'une traduction en français.
Okay. So we need the translation. There are people requesting a translation.
Yeah, so that's fine. So
Yeah.
I think the best way, because with Valerie, how long will you be here? Because you said you might have another meeting.
Yeah, it's okay. I prefer to honor your presence and help as much as possible. It's okay.
Okay, well, let's just start. So I've prepared this written article, and because of the translation, let's just go through sentence by sentence. And then if people have a question, they can ask, but this might be the easiest. So probably you all know something about Microvita. I think, has everyone heard about Microvita? Let me just ask.
Donc, première question, est-ce que vous avez entendu parler des Microvita déjà? Et qu'est-ce que vous pouvez en dire? So yes, there is one yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, I will be explaining Microvita a little. So even if you haven't heard, you'll get some basic idea.
Donc, même si vous n'avez pas beaucoup entendu parler de Microvita, vous en aurez quelques idées parce que ça va être le sujet. Donc, Richard Gauthier va aborder. You want me to call you Richard or Rudresha?
You can say Rudresha.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So let me just start. In 1986, Prabhat Ranjan Sarkar, who is the guru of Ananda Marga, he introduced the subject of Microvita for the first time.
Donc, je lis le texte parce que j'ai fait la traduction tout à l'heure, ça sera plus simple. Alors, en 1986, P.R. Sarkar a introduit le sujet des microvitas pour la première fois dans un discours intitulé « Le microvitum, l'émanation mystérieuse du facteur cosmique ».
Yeah, so microvitum, the mysterious emanation of cosmic factor. That was a spoken talk he gave. That he gave all of his ideas speaking. He never wrote any books directly. He spoke everything.
Donc ce n'était pas un livre à proprement parler dans le sens où il l'avait écrit, mais c'était des discours qui étaient retranscrits ensuite. Il a toujours procédé de la sorte.
So the Microvita, it's a very exciting and new idea.
Les microvitas étaient un sujet très enthousiasmant et une idée nouvelle.
He explained that microvita are subtle, subatomic, living beings that move throughout the universe.
Il a expliqué que les microvitas étaient des êtres vivants, subatomiques, subtils, qui se déplacent à travers l'univers.
They create minds and bodies, and they also spread diseases.
Ils créent des corps physiques, psychiques, et ils propagent aussi des maladies.
He said that they have their positive and negative, and as well as neutral varieties.
Il a parlé de trois catégories, des variétés positives, négatives, ainsi que neutres.
And also 3 different levels of subtlety, from crude to subtle to very subtle.
Et il a parlé aussi de 3 niveaux différents de subtilité, de plus dense, grossier, plus subtil et encore plus subtil.
They move through physical and psychic media. It means they move through like sound, they move through light, they move through touch. They also move through ideas.
Il se déplace à travers les sens, c'est-à-dire à travers l'audition, la vision, l'odorat, etc. Et aussi à travers les idées.
And they play various roles in the evolution of life and mind.
Et il joue plusieurs rôles à travers l'évolution, through evolution and what else? What do you say?
of life and mind.
De la vie et de l'esprit.
Okay, and so in this talk, I will examine some of the different roles that Microvita play in what is called the cosmic cycle of creation.
Et dans cette présentation, je vais examiner quelques-uns de ces rôles dans le cycle cosmique de la création.
This cycle, the cosmic cycle of creation is the concept of P.R. Sarkar also.
Et le cycle cosmique de la création est aussi un des nombreux concepts que nous a apporté Prabhadranjan Sarkar.
Excuse me, are you sharing your screen or not?
I'm only sharing the document.
No,
No, even the document, I'm not seeing. I don't know if other people are seeing.
I could share my screen because I have the French. Would that help?
Let me just do something first. I'm gonna.
Yeah, better you share because you can control what you.
Is that showing now? Sharing the screen?
Perfect. Yes.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to tell about the cosmic cycle of creation first, and then talk about the role of Microvita.
Donc je vais d'abord parler du cycle cosmique de la création et ensuite on en arrivera à parler des Microvita.
So in yoga philosophy, consciousness comes first.
Dans la philosophie du yoga, la conscience vient en premier.
And at the first stage is called the supreme consciousness that has no expressed qualities. It's called non-qualified supreme consciousness.
Donc la première étape, le premier niveau de la conscience, c'est la conscience suprême non qualifiée.
There's no mind at all there.
Et il n'y a pas d'esprit à ce niveau-là.
You can say it is pure consciousness, pure bliss.
On peut parler de pure conscience, de pure béatitude, de félicité.
But it has the power of creation.
Mais qui a ce potentiel de création.
It can give qualities to itself.
Il peut se donner des qualités à lui-même.
And it can become, at least in part, qualified supreme consciousness with qualities.
Et il peut devenir qualifié, une conscience suprême avec des qualités en partie.
It is always consciousness, but it can get more and more qualities.
C'est toujours la conscience, mais qui peut obtenir de plus en plus de qualités.
So the first quality it gives itself is the feeling of existence.
Et la première qualité qu'il se donne à lui-même, c'est le sentiment d'existence.
It's the beginning of a cosmic mind.
C'est le début d'un esprit cosmique.
And it has the experience of action, I do.
Et qui a l'expérience de l'action, l'expérience de je fais.
And the experience that I have done something, I have created something.
Et l'expérience aussi de j'ai fait, j'ai créé quelque chose.
And these three feelings, I exist, I do, I have done, that's the cosmic mind's feelings.
Et ces trois sentiments, donc de j'existe, j'ai fait, je fais et j'ai fait. What did you say? So,
those are the feelings of the cosmic mind.
Ce sont les sentiments de l'esprit cosmique.
Okay. One of the first creations of the cosmic mind is Microvita.
La première création de l'esprit cosmique, ce sont les Microvita.
And they are going to help create the physical universe.
Et ce sont eux qui vont permettre d'aider à créer l'univers physique.
And this physical universe around us, it is also existing in the cosmic mind.
Et cet univers physique existe également dans cette conscience cosmique.
Okay. Now, the picture to the right shows an image of the cosmic cycle of creation.
Donc l'image que l'on voit à droite, c'est ce cycle de création.
At the top is the unexpressed consciousness.
En haut, on voit cette conscience non exprimée.
Then when the consciousness expresses, then that's where the cosmic mind. So all of this circle is everything happening in the cosmic mind.
Tout se produit dans la conscience cosmique.
So there are different levels. It's starting with space, empty space. That's called the etheric factor.
Il y a plusieurs niveaux. Il y a l'espace, le vide. C'est le facteur éthérique.
Then next level is called aerial factor. It's okay, just has a quality of you can say carries air vibrations of air.
Et le deuxième niveau, c'est le facteur aérien qui porte la qualité de la vibration de l'air.
Yeah, and then luminous, it carries a light and this material which is giving off light like stars.
Et le troisième niveau, c'est le facteur lumineux qui porte la lumière, on peut penser à la lumière des étoiles.
And then there you get a liquid stage. For example, the early Earth was all liquid fire, like it was before it became solid, the Earth was liquid.
Et on a ensuite le niveau liquide, et on peut d'ailleurs penser à la Terre dans sa phase précoce. Elle était constituée de liquide et de feu.
Yeah, and then now the surface of our Earth and some parts of the Earth are solid. So that's the crudest physical factor is solid matter.
Et par la suite, donc, il y a à la surface de la Terre et certaines parties aussi de la Terre, ça s'est densifié et c'est le facteur solide.
So this is the first half of the cosmic cycle, from the most subtle, pure consciousness down to the stage of the crudest solid matter. That's the first stage of the cosmic cycle.
Donc on a cette première phase, donc cette moitié de ce cycle de la création qui consiste à quitter cette pure conscience, la partie la plus subtile, et de descendre en densité de plus en plus dense jusqu'à le facteur solide de la matière.
And this is the stage that the direction of the cosmic cycle starts to turn around.
Et c'est à ce stade que la direction s'oriente dans l'autre sens.
And so this is the beginning of the stage of life. And just a quick question, is this being recorded, Valerie?
Une question, est-ce que c'est enregistré ce qu'on a?
Yes, it's recorded.
Thank you. Okay, so this is the first stage of the beginning of life, right at the bottom where the cycle starts to turn around.
Donc c'est le début, le commencement de la vie, quand la direction de cette roue, ce cycle cosmique change de direction.
First, we have the first living cells start, the protozoa.
Donc on a les premières cellules de vie, les protozoaires.
So there are living bodies and minds.
Donc il y a des corps physiques vivants et des psychismes.
Even in the protozoa, the bacteria, the amoebas, they all have a living body and a little mind.
Même dans un protozoaire, une amibe, ils ont également à ce niveau un corps et un psychisme.
So the second half of the cosmic cycle is the development of bodies and minds.
Donc la deuxième partie de ce cycle cosmique, c'est le développement donc de ce corps et ce psychisme.
So for example, and we know this from the history of biology, that there are single cells, then there are multicellular creatures, and then the different plants and animals come into existence.
Donc on l'enseigne en histoire, en biologie, on a les cellules, les organismes unicellulaires et ensuite multicellulaires, et une évolution donc, qui va depuis ces créatures jusqu'aux plantes, aux animaux.
Many different groups of animals of many varieties.
Et plusieurs groupes d'animaux, plusieurs variétés, diversité d'animaux.
Always more and more complex up to the stage of human beings.
Et toujours de plus en plus complexe jusqu'au stade de l'être humain.
And we call this the evolutionary process.
Et on appelle ce processus le processus évolutif.
Okay, and Microvita will come into this process. I will explain later.
Et les Microvita entrent dans son processus et je l'expliquerai par la suite.
Okay, but when we have human beings, they also have different levels of development.
Et quand on parle des êtres humains, ils ont aussi différents niveaux de développement.
And when we become more and more advanced and our minds are more subtle, we understand that there is a goal of life and we can find a way to reach the goal of life.
Et quand on devient de plus en plus, l'esprit devient plus subtil, plus avancé, on comprend que la vie, il y a un but dans la vie et on trouve le moyen d'y parvenir.
And that the goal of life is complete freedom, complete happiness, complete peace.
Et que le but de la vie, c'est de parvenir à la parfaite libération, au bonheur parfait, à la paix parfaite.
And complete love also.
Et à l'amour parfait également.
Okay. And that there is a way to reach that, and that process to reach the goal of life is called sadhana, or spiritual practices.
Et qu'il y a un moyen de parvenir à cela, à ce but, c'est à travers la pratique spirituelle, la sadhana.
And the final stage of sadhana is to reach that original non-qualified supreme consciousness. So by closing the circle, we all we started from supreme consciousness and then we return to the supreme consciousness.
Donc l'étape finale, finalement, c'est de revenir dans cette conscience suprême non qualifiée, originale, d'où nous sommes partis.
And that's why it's called the cosmic cycle of creation.
Et c'est pourquoi on parle de cycle cosmique de la création.
Okay, so here I've already been saying these things, and Valerie has explaining, but so I don't think I need to say this again because this is what Valerie has been explaining. This from supreme consciousness, cosmic mind, physical matter, ethereal, aerial, luminous, solid, and then from living single cells back. So everything Valerie has explained, that's what this paragraph is saying.
Donc je ne reviens pas sur ce paragraphe puisqu'on vient de l'expliquer, on l'a parcouru déjà.
Okay, so now where do Microvita come into this cosmic cycle of creation. This is because Microvita are a new subject.
Donc maintenant qu'on a vu ce cycle cosmique de la création, de partir de la conscience pure et non qualifiée, etc., et de revenir à cette conscience pure à travers différentes étapes, où se place la création des microvitas.
P.R. Sarkar explained the cosmic cycle of creation first around 1955.
Prabhat Rajan Sarkar a commencé à parler pour la première fois de ce cycle cosmique de la création en 1955.
But Microvita were not introduced until 1986, so almost 30 years later.
Mais il n'a parlé des microvitas que 30 ans plus tard, en 1986.
Okay. And you can think cosmic cycle of creation is like a philosophy.
Et on peut penser que ce cycle cosmique de la création fait partie de la philosophie.
And Microvita can change that philosophy into a science.
Et que les microvitas peuvent transformer cette philosophie en science.
Okay, so the question is, in what scientific ways do Microvita act in the cosmic cycle of creation?
Et on peut se poser la question de quelle manière est-ce que les microvitas interviennent de manière scientifique dans la création.
Okay, so one of the first ways is Microvita create the first physical particles like electrons, protons, and neutrons. All the physical particles are created by Microvita taking energy and putting the energy into a form of particles.
Et on peut penser que les microvitas sont à l'origine ils prennent l'énergie et la mettent en forme et ils créent toutes les particules physiques, que ce soit les électrons, les protons, les neutrons, etc.
Now, the physicists have their very detailed theories of matter and energy, but Microvita is an even deeper theory.
Les physiciens ont des théories très détaillées concernant la matière, l'énergie, mais il semblerait que les microvitas soient encore à un niveau supplémentaire de profondeur.
Yeah. So, for example, after the physical particles are created, then atoms are formed.
Donc, par exemple, après la création des particules physiques, on arrive à la création de la formation des atomes.
And according to P.R. Sarkar, each atom contains not 2 or 3, but billions of microvita.
Et selon Prabhat Rajan Sarkar, les atomes sont constitués non pas de 2 ou 3 microvitas, mais de milliards de microvitas.
Yeah, and they're doing something, but they are more, you can say, more sleeping, more inactive when they're in the atoms.
Ils font quelque chose, mais plus ils sont en état latent, inactif, quand ils sont dans l'atome.
Now, but remember, these microvita have been created by the cosmic mind, and they form the particles and they form atoms.
Et rappelons-nous que les microvitas ont été créés par la conscience cosmique et ils forment les particules physiques, les atomes.
Oui, it means the cosmic mind has given them the information how to make particles, how to make atoms. All of that information is built into the microvita.
Donc, ça veut dire que l'esprit cosmique leur a donné l'information pour créer ces particules.
So you can think that they have been programmed like little computers to do the work of the cosmic mind.
Donc, on pourrait penser qu'ils ont été construits, programmés un peu comme des petits ordinateurs,
But yeah,
pour faire le
yeah.
travail de la conscience cosmique.
But they are living. Microvita are living.
Mais ce sont des êtres vivants.
Okay, so they bring the quality of life into the universe.
Donc ils amènent la qualité du vivant dans l'univers.
Okay, now we know that after there, in the history of the universe, there are many atoms, and we know that then galaxies form, and then stars form, and planets. All of these things happen according to physics, but all of these different creations are actually formed from microvita. Galaxies and stars, everything.
Et après, on connaît un peu l'histoire de l'univers, mais à partir de cette théorie, on pourrait nous amène à penser que toutes les galaxies, les étoiles, toutes ont été créées par les microvitas.
Which gives forms to all of these different celestial objects.
Qui donnent forme à tous ces corps célestes.
Now, and the atoms start combining and they form molecules, as you know, like you get molecules of oxygen, hydrogen, carbon dioxide, water, H2O. All of these molecules are also formed from atoms.
Les atomes se combinent entre eux et forment des molécules. Et on a les molécules, comme vous les connaissez, d'oxygène, d'hydrogène, de gaz carbonique, l'eau, H2O, etc.
And then we can say somehow the first living beings come into existence.
Et ensuite, on peut dire que les premiers êtres vivants apparaissent.
And according to the biologists, they say, oh, these atoms and molecules just come together by chance and they form, after some time, they form proteins, they form DNA, they form RNA, and then life begins.
Et selon les théories des biologistes, donc les atomes, les molécules arrivent comme ça un peu par hasard et se forment après un certain temps et forment des protéines, l'ADN, l'ARN, etc.
But they have no explanation for how DNA and RNA are formed to create the first life.
Mais ils n'ont pas d'explication pour expliquer comment l'ADN, l'ARN forment la vie.
Now, according to P.R. Sarkar, the atoms which contain microvita, those atoms become awakened, they release the microvita form viruses, and the viruses carry the DNA and RNA codes.
Donc, d'après Prabhatrajan Sarkar, les atomes contiennent des microvitas et ils sont activés. Les microvitas sont libérés et ces microvitas vont former des virus et ces virus sont porteurs d'ADN, de codons d'ADN et d'ARN.
So actually the cosmic mind has given the formula for DNA and RNA, and that the physical molecules are created by the microvita.
Et en réalité, l'esprit cosmique a donné la formule pour que l'ADN, l'ARN puissent former des molécules physiques.
And those then can create the first living cells.
Et qui peuvent à leur tour créer les premières cellules vivantes.
So this is a very revolutionary idea for biology, if it's true.
Donc ce sont des idées très révolutionnaires en biologie si ça s'avère exact.
Okay. Well, where does mind come from? According to P.R. Sarkar, every atom also has a simple feeling of I, not very developed, but a little bit of I feeling in every atom.
Donc, selon Sarkar, tout esprit, d'où vient l'esprit? Selon lui, même un atome, aussi simple soit-il, a ce sentiment de je, d'existence. Même si
And
c'est
that
peu
comes
développé.
And that comes from the microvita, from the billions of microvita, which are living. They also have a little bit of feeling of existence.
Et ça provient des microvitas, de ces milliards de microvitas qui ont aussi, même si c'est peu développé, ce sentiment de vie, d'existence.
And we need to remember that all of these are actually consciousness, which has been given different qualities, whether it's microvita or matter or mind, it's all different expressions of consciousness.
Et il faut se rappeler que tout provient de la conscience et avec des qualités différentes, que ce soit les microvitas, la matière ou l'esprit.
But it's going through a pattern of change from one to the other in the cosmic cycle of creation.
Et que dans ce cycle cosmique de la création, ça suit des formes, des modèles de changement d'une forme à l'autre.
So now we have the first living beings, but still evolution creates more different kinds, more varieties of life. How does that happen?
Donc nous avons les premiers êtres vivants et l'évolution crée de plus en plus de diversité de formes de vie. Comment est-ce que ça se produit?
The process is very similar. Microvita continue to be awakened. Microvita form viruses. Viruses carry new DNA that help the living beings to evolve.
Et donc c'est le même processus, que de plus en plus de microvitas se réveillent, ils forment des virus. Les virus sont porteurs de nouvel ADN qui vont aider les êtres vivants à évoluer.
And according to P.R. Sarkar, it's not just by chance, but the animals and plants are trying to express themselves in different ways and to adjust to their environment. There's an active process of the species to try to change.
Il y a, selon Sarkar, ce n'est pas par hasard. C'est-à-dire que tous les animaux, les plantes cherchent à s'exprimer de différentes manières en fonction de leur environnement. C'est un processus actif.
And this active process is what attracts the DNA that they need for developing their bodies and then their minds. And their instincts and their psychological expressions, they are all helped to develop by the DNA that comes from their desires to develop.
Et donc c'est un processus actif, c'est cette attraction de l'ADN qui leur est nécessaire pour développer ce corps, ce psychisme, ces instincts, cette psychologie, etc. C'est cet ADN qui va leur permettre de se développer dans la direction qu'ils choisissent.
Okay. And even at the stage of human beings, they also get more DNA and to develop to be human beings from being humanoid or from being less developed animals.
Et pareil dans la phase chez l'être humain, il va attirer plus d'ADN pour se développer à partir d'une forme humanoïde ou peut-être moins développée.
And when there are human beings, they start developing in a human society, and civilization develops.
Et quand on est en tant qu'être humain, on se développe, on va développer une société humaine et on va aussi développer développer une civilisation humaine.
And they have problems of health and illness, and those problems also need to be solved in the society.
Et puis, ils font confronter des problèmes de santé, de maladies, et ce seront également des problèmes qu'il faudra résoudre.
And human beings need to figure out how to create a good society that works for everybody.
Et ils devront réaliser, résoudre, faire en sorte de trouver la meilleure formule pour la société pour répondre à tous les problèmes de chacun.
Okay, and finally, human beings returned to the supreme consciousness.
Et enfin, l'être humain retourne à la source, à la conscience suprême.
And there's another role for Microvita, because the supreme consciousness creates, we call it divine grace, which attracts the human beings to God.
Et il y a un autre rôle pour les microvitas, c'est-à-dire que la conscience suprême crée la grâce divine pour attirer l'être humain vers lui.
And that divine grace is also Microvita.
Et cette grâce divine est aussi liée à un microvita particulier.
So from the level of creating physical particles to the level of attracting people back to God, Microvita are playing many different roles in this cycle of creation.
Donc depuis le niveau de des particules de physique au niveau où de cette attraction de retour vers Dieu, voilà plusieurs différents rôles que les microvitas peuvent jouer.
Yeah. So now what you've been explaining, the words that the following paragraphs have explained the same thing.
Donc tout ce qu'on a parcouru maintenant, tous ces paragraphes parlent de toutes ces choses.
Okay, but maybe as a kind of a review, let's just go through, because it needs thinking about. So
on va faire une révision un peu parce que ça nécessite un peu de réflexion.
So how do Microvita fit into the cycle of creation?
Comment les microvitas, est-ce qu'ils s'ajustent, s'adaptent dans ce cycle cosmique de la création?
Microvita, emanated by the cosmic mind, they're subtle, subatomic, living, cosmic intelligence agents. That's their job.
Donc ces microvitas, ces émanations de la conscience cosmique sont des particules vivantes, subatomiques, subtiles. Ce sont comme des agents de l'intelligence cosmique.
They're doing the work of the cosmic mind.
Ils sont les instruments, ils font le travail de la conscience cosmique.
So how do they move? Their work is to accelerate the cosmic cycle of creation, to move it forward, keep the cycle moving.
Comment est-ce qu'ils œuvrent, hein? Leur travail consiste à accélérer ce processus, ce cycle de création cosmique, de maintenir en activité.
So at each stage, they provide what is needed to finally evolve human beings and then bring human beings back to supreme consciousness.
Donc à chaque étape de ce processus d'évolution, ils apportent ce qui est nécessaire à l'être vivant ou à l'être humain pour retourner à la source, vers la conscience suprême.
So first, Microvita created the physical particles from energy.
Donc d'abord, les microvitas ont créé les particules physiques à partir de l'énergie.
The scientists say that this happened in the Big Bang that produced our universe.
Les scientifiques parlent de Big Bang qui a permis cette création, qui a produit notre univers.
But they don't know what caused the Big Bang.
Mais ils n'ont pas d'idée de ce qui a causé ce Big Bang.
And according to the consciousness philosophy, the Big Bang came from the cosmic mind.
Et d'après la philosophie spirituelle,
Yeah, spiritual philosophy.
ça vient de la conscience suprême.
And the reason was finally to create human beings that will come back to God.
Et la raison de leur existence est de permettre à l'être humain, à la conscience humaine, de retourner à Dieu.
So this was all planned by the Supreme Consciousness to create this universe that is perfect for human beings to grow and develop.
Donc tout était planifié par la conscience suprême, cet univers parfait pour le développement de l'être humain.
But it's all done in a very natural way.
Et tout a été fait d'une manière très naturelle.
But natural includes Microvita. They are part of nature also.
Et cette manière très naturelle inclut les microvitas. Ils font
But
partie.
they are not, today, they are not understood by science. Science does not recognize the existence of Microvita.
Et c'est très nouveau et ce n'est pas encore reconnu par la science, le monde scientifique.
And it may be hundreds of years before Microvita are fully understood.
Et peut-être ça va prendre des centaines d'années avant que les microvitas soient parfaitement compris.
But we are trying to understand Microvita as best we can.
Mais on essaie de comprendre autant que faire se peut ce dont il s'agit de ces microvitas.
And P.R. Sarkar has given only hints, only suggestions about how Microvita work, and he wants us to do Microvita research.
Et P.R. Sarkar nous a donné que quelques rudiments, quelques suggestions, et c'est à nous de prendre en main cette recherche sur les microvitas. Il nous enjoint à le faire.
He's not going to explain everything. He wants us to figure many things out by our own minds, using our own scientific research.
Donc il nous a pas tout expliqué, il nous enjoint par notre propre capacité à essayer à faire cette recherche.
Okay, so the physical particles are made of what are called negative microvita.
Donc les particules physiques sont constituées de ce qu'on appelle les microvitas négatives.
And negative means only that they move in the direction of matter, to create matter. So they are pro-matter. That gives them the negative, only, it doesn't mean bad, it just means matter, okay? So positive and negative just mean like consciousness and matter. It's two ends of the polarity of consciousness. So negative just means in the direction of matter. Negative microvita create matter.
Sorry, I muted myself. Donc, quand on parle de microvita négatif ou positif, ce n'est pas en un sens de positif ou négatif, c'est dans le sens de direction. le microvita négatifs sont dans ce cycle cosmique de la création vers la densification. C'est la direction vers la
Yeah.
densification, la matière. Alors que l'autre sens sera le microvita positif qui nous entraîne dans l'autre boucle vers plus de conscience, plus de...
Oui, yes, very good. Okay, so then atoms are created by combining the physical particles into atoms.
Donc les atomes sont créés et en combinant les atomes, sorry, what did you say, combining?
They're combined together to form atoms.
Donc quand on combines to form, ok.
The microvita.
Microvita, ok. Quand on combine les microvita, on constitue, donc quand ils se combinent entre eux, on forme un atome.
Yeah, and billions of microvita form one atom.
Et des milliards de microvita constituent un atome.
And all the atoms are formed from microvita.
Et tous les atomes sont formés, sont créés à partir des microvita.
And these microvita are awakened at a later stage to do other work.
Et ces microvitas sont activés à un stade ultérieur pour faire d'autres tâches.
E.R. Sarkar describes the microvita are awakened by a kind of explosion, which he calls jadasphota.
Sarkar décrit d'un réveil qui se produit à travers une explosion qu'il appelle jadasphota.
And jadasphota means material explosion.
Et jadasphota signifie une explosion de la matière.
Just like a supernova star explodes in the universe, that's also called jadasphota.
Tout comme l'explosion d'une supernova dans l'univers, ça s'appelle également jadasphota, une explosion de matière.
Okay. But this, with atoms, the jadasphota happens in a chemical environment. So jadasphota can happen in a chemical solution.
Donc ça peut se produire également au niveau de l'atome, dans un environnement chimique.
But we have to understand, how can we get an explosion in a chemical environment?
Et à nous d'essayer de comprendre comment on peut obtenir une explosion dans un environnement chimique.
And I would like you to think about that, because I have a proposal for that.
Et j'aimerais que vous réfléchissiez à cela, parce que j'ai une proposition à faire à ce niveau.
Okay. But
Yeah, there is a few questions. I don't know if it's. I mean, maybe Gurvati, you can check the questions if it's related, because yeah.
yeah,
In the chat.
okay. So anyway, negative microvita are awakened and they form physical viruses. This is what we've talked about.
Donc les microvita négatifs sont donc activés, et à ce moment-là, ils forment des virus.
And the viruses carry the DNA or RNA that gives the information to create the first biological protozoa, life forms.
Donc ces virus sont porteurs de codes d'information, d'ADN, d'ARN, qui permettent la création des premières formes biologiques.
And remember, biologists do not know the answer of how the first life comes to exist in the universe.
Les biologistes n'ont pas d'idée, n'ont pas de réponse de comment la vie est apparue, la première forme de vie est apparue dans l'univers.
It's one of the most difficult questions in biology to explain the origin of life.
C'est peut-être une des questions les plus difficiles d'expliquer comment la vie est survenue.
Okay. And according to P.R. Sarkar, it's the microvita that give the necessary DNA and RNA from the cosmic mind. And that's what forms the first life.
Et selon donc Prabhatranjan Sarkar, ce sont les microvitas qui qui apportent les informations contenues qui donnent les codes d'ADN et d'ARN provenant de la vie, de la conscience cosmique.
So if this could be proved, it would be a revolution in biology, because it would show that the cosmic mind is acting to create the first living cells.
Donc si on pouvait prouver cela, ce serait une révolution littéralement en biologie de prouver que c'est la conscience cosmique qui agit pour créer.
And it's not only random forces and Darwinism, survival of the fittest. That doesn't give the complete answer for the origin of life.
Donc ce n'est pas seulement par une force, la force du hasard ou la survie de celui qui est le plus comment dire, fit, le plus adapté selon la théorie darwinienne. At the end, I forgot what you said.
Oh, okay. The cosmic mind is doing this work.
C'est l'esprit cosmique, la conscience cosmique qui est derrière tout cela.
Mm-hmm. And again, just to remind you, the first living cells, they get an I feeling from the microvita.
Donc, ce qui est intéressant aussi, c'est les premières cellules vivantes ont ce sentiment de jeu, d'existence grâce à ces microvitas qui les constituent.
So both their minds and their bodies, their living bodies, are creations of microvita.
Et donc, à la fois leur corps physique et psychique sont la création des microvitas.
Okay. And that process continues after the protozoa are formed. That process continues to form the animals and plants and human beings.
Donc ce processus se poursuit et donc après la formation de protozoaires, on continue dans le cycle de l'évolution. On passe du domaine du règne animal au règne de végétaux au règne animal.
Yeah. And when human society is formed, still it requires new ideas to form a human civilization.
Et quand la société humaine est formée, elle a encore besoin de nouvelles idées aussi pour créer une civilisation humaine.
And this is one of the roles of Microvita also, to give human beings ideas of how to progress and how to advance.
Et ça fait partie aussi des rôles des microvitas d'apporter des idées de comment permettre à une société humaine de progresser, d'évoluer.
And this is the role of the subtle microvita.
Et ça c'est la tâche, c'est le travail des microvitas subtils.
They bring subtle concepts of ideas, creative ideas. They bring these ideas to human minds.
Et c'est donc
creative ideas they bring to human minds.
D'apporter des idées créatives, des concepts subtils à l'esprit humain.
For example, the idea of the wheel. Where did it come from? It came from a concept in the human mind.
Par exemple, l'idée de la roue, d'où est-elle venue? C'était un concept qui est arrivé dans le psychisme humain.
And the idea of planting seeds and growing crops, someone had to have this idea.
Et l'idée de planter des graines, de cultiver, quelqu'un a eu cette idée originalement.
This didn't happen just by chance.
Ça ne s'est pas produit comme ça juste par le pur hasard.
Yeah. Human beings existed maybe for almost 1 million years without these things.
Et les êtres humains ont vécu, existent depuis 1 million d'années sans avoir eu ces idées.
But at a certain stage, the civilization accelerated.
Mais à un stade particulier, l'évolution s'est accélérée.
Clothing developed, sewing, making garments. That was a discovery.
Les vêtements sont apparus, l'art de fabriquer des vêtements.
And written script. After they had some language, but the idea to write down the language, that was also a discovery.
Et aussi l'écriture, et mettre par écrit le langage, c'était aussi une nouveauté.
And P.R. Sarkar suggested that it is Microvita that brought those creative ideas to human beings to accelerate their progress.
Et John Sarkar donc a dit que c'était aussi les Microvita qui avaient apporté ces idées pour accélérer le progrès humain.
Now, one interesting question is, Microvita brought diseases, and diseases are caused by negative microvita.
Et une question intéressante, les microvita seraient à l'origine de certaines maladies, de la propagation de certaines maladies.
So how did diseases help humanity to develop? They had some role also.
Comment est-ce que les maladies peuvent permettre à l'humanité de se développer?
So I had to think about this for a while, and I suggest you also think, why do we need diseases?
Donc je me suis penchée sur la question et je vous suggère de faire de même. Pourquoi l'humanité a besoin de passer par certaines maladies?
Well, human life develops when there are obstacles.
Alors, en fait,
Life develops when there are obstacles.
la vie humaine se développe quand elle se confronte à des obstacles.
And the disease is an obstacle. If you can see it like that, disease is an obstacle to human development.
Et on peut voir la maladie de la sorte. La maladie est un obstacle à surmonter.
But people did develop cures for diseases.
Et certaines personnes ont développé des cures pour certaines maladies.
And in Microvita, if you think about Microvita, positive Microvita fight against negative Microvita to defeat the disease.
Donc, on parle de microvita positifs qui permettent de lutter contre les microvita négatifs pour combattre la maladie.
But positive microvita are attracted when a person has a positive mind and positive thoughts, positive feelings.
Et les microvita positifs sont attirés quand on a un esprit positif, des pensées, des sentiments positifs.
And in the future, human beings will understand the role of positive microvita in curing and treating diseases.
Et à l'avenir, les êtres humains comprendront le rôle des microvitas positifs pour soigner les maladies.
Allopathic medicines may stop the pain, but they do not cure a disease.
Les médecines allopathiques, certes, peuvent arrêter la douleur, mais elles ne traitent pas la maladie.
So people can use allopathic medicines, but they should also try to create a balanced mind, a balanced body, and that's going to be the real solution to the disease.
On peut utiliser bien sûr les médicaments, la médecine allopathique, mais il faudra aussi en parallèle travailler pour établir un équilibre, que ce soit au niveau physique que psychique. C'est là la réelle solution.
Because according to P.R. Sarkar, only allopathic medicine, it suppresses the disease, but it creates new diseases that are more complicated in the future.
Parce que selon P.R. Sarkar, ne soigner que par la médecine allopathique, elle peut effectivement réprimer ou opprimer, non c'est pas le terme, suppress, éliminer la maladie, mais elle crée par ailleurs d'autres maladies.
So every year there are new diseases that human beings have that they didn't have in the past.
Et chaque année, on voit tout un flot de nouvelles maladies qui surgissent, qui n'existaient pas auparavant.
This is the effect of only using allopathic medicine.
Et c'est le résultat direct de l'usage n'utiliser que la médecine allopathique.
And this is the system of medicine that is dominant in our society today.
Et c'est le système qui est dominant dans notre société à l'heure actuelle.
So there needs to be a revolution in medicine also, bringing the effect of understanding of positive microvita to actually cure diseases.
Et donc, il nécessite une révolution en médecine également pour comprendre l'effet des microvitas positifs.
And meditation is one of the best treatments for disease, according to P.R. Sarkar.
Et la méditation est sans doute un des meilleurs traitements, selon Prabhat Rajan Sarkar, pour soigner la maladie.
And meditation attracts positive microvita that fight the disease.
Et la méditation attire les microvitas positifs pour combattre la maladie.
So in this way, the result is that people will do more meditation to make their bodies and minds balanced, but it will also bring them spiritual progress as a result.
Donc, les personnes se mettront en plus à méditer et à créer cet équilibre, que ce soit physique, aussi bien physique que mental, et qui par là même amènera aussi le progrès spirituel.
And without the challenge of illness, human beings would not be able to progress as much.
Sans ce défi de la maladie, les êtres humains ne connaîtraient pas autant l'opportunité de progrès.
So negative microvita also have their role in accelerating human progress. This was my own understanding of how this works. Negative microvita have a role in accelerating human progress.
Voilà, c'est comme ça que je comprends maintenant comment les Microvita négatifs ont un rôle dans l'accélération du progrès humain.
Okay, so, and one other very interesting idea, we have seen that Microvita play significant roles at every stage of the cosmic cycle.
Et on a vu donc une idée intéressante également, on a vu que les microvitas jouent un rôle significatif dans chaque cycle.
And they were designed to help carry out the will of the Supreme Consciousness.
Et qu'ils étaient conçus pour mener la volonté de la conscience suprême.
P.R. Sarkar explained that the Supreme Consciousness actually divided itself into infinite individual consciousnesses or individual souls.
P.R. Sarkar avait expliqué également que la conscience suprême s'était en réalité divisée en une infinité d'âmes individuelles.
And each of those, yes, each of those individual cells and souls goes through the process of the cosmic cycle of creation again and reaches the Supreme Consciousness and becomes one with it.
Et chacune de ces entités, ces cellules individuelles, ces âmes individuelles, parcourt donc ce processus du cycle cosmique pour retourner et devenir un à nouveau avec la conscience suprême.
So each of our individual souls is closely associated with the Supreme Consciousness.
Et donc,
you can think of it as a reflection of the Supreme Consciousness.
Donc chacune de nos âmes sont très liées, très associées à cette conscience cosmique suprême et en sont le reflet.
And that individual consciousness in the end becomes one with the Supreme Consciousness again.
Et cette conscience individuelle, à la fin, devient fusionne à nouveau avec la conscience cosmique suprême.
Okay, so this is the cosmic cycle of creation, aided by Microvita, is to bring every individual soul through this whole cycle and back to the Supreme Consciousness.
Donc dans ce processus, ce cycle cosmique de la création, les microvitas amènent chaque individu, chaque âme à travers tout ce processus, ce long cycle de retour vers l'un.
Oh, okay. Now, what I've explained about the cosmic cycle of creation and Microvita, maybe you'll think it sounds very nice, but is it true?
Donc, après tout ce que je vous ai dit pour expliquer le processus le cycle cosmique de la création et les microvitas, ça peut sembler agréable à entendre, mais la question, est-ce que c'est réel?
And if a person is skeptical, they will say, what is the proof?
Et si une personne est sceptique, elle dira, ok, c'est bien joli tout ça, mais donnez-moi une preuve.
And a person, if they are atheist, they will deny the existence of universal consciousness.
Et si une personne est athée, elle niera l'existence d'une conscience suprême, universelle.
They'll say, this is just a hope or a dream.
Ils diront, c'est juste un rêve, un espoir.
And the problem of religions is always to say, can you prove that God exists or not?
Et le problème avec les religions, c'est toujours, pouvez-vous me donner un élément de preuve de l'existence de Dieu?
And most religions say that you should just accept God on faith.
Et la plupart des religions diront, simplement, c'est une question de foi. Accepter l'idée de Dieu, c'est une question de croyance et de foi.
And atheists will say, but we don't have this faith. What's the proof?
Une personne athée dira, nous n'avons pas cette foi. Donnez-nous une preuve.
So this is now coming to the second part of my presentation. That can we show there's scientific proof for Microvita?
Donc, on en arrive à la deuxième partie de ma présentation. Est-ce que l'on a une preuve, un élément de preuve scientifique de cette présence et existence des microvitas?
And Pierre Sarkar, he requested that people do scientific research on Microvita to establish the science of Microvita.
Et donc, Pierre Sarkar a expressément demandé à ce que l'on fasse des études, des recherches sur les microvitas pour établir la science des microvitas.
Yeah, and a number of people have been trying very hard for 35 years to find some scientific proof for Microvita, but they have not been successful up till now.
Donc, il y a de nombreuses personnes qui se sont penchées sur la question depuis, ça fait 35 ans, mais qui n'ont pas été, ça n'a pas été couronné vraiment de succès.
And recently, I saw by looking at P.R. Sarkar's own words, maybe he gave a hint of how to prove Microvita scientifically.
Récemment, j'ai découvert des citations de Pierre Sarkar qui donnent des suggestions de comment établir cet élément de preuve qui nous manque.
And it has to do with understanding how life evolved.
Et c'est se pencher sur la question de comment la vie évolue.
Okay, so if we can find an explanation of how life evolved, maybe this will give us the proof of Microvita.
Donc, si on arrive à trouver une explication de comment la vie évolue, peut-être là, on aura cet élément de preuve.
So let's think how we can use what P.R. Sarkar said about Microvita to explain, to do an experiment about the origin of life.
Donc, réfléchissons une seconde et comment utiliser ce que Pierre Sarkar nous a dit à propos des microvitas pour expliquer quelle forme d'expérience ou d'expérimentation à laquelle nous pouvons procéder pour expliquer l'origine de la vie.
Now, remember that he did say that billions of microvita form atoms.
Rappelez-vous qu'il nous a dit qu'il faut plusieurs milliards de microvitas pour former un atome.
And he also said that atoms can awaken their microvita to carry DNA and RNA to form life.
Et rappelez-vous également qu'il a dit que les microvitas qui constituent les atomes peuvent être activés, réveillés, pour transporter l'ADN ou l'ARN qu'ils contiennent.
But he didn't directly say how the microvita are awakened. He said there is a jadis phota.
Il n'a pas dit précisément comment réveiller et activer ces microvitas, mais il a bien parlé de jadaspota, c'est-à-dire d'explosion de matière.
So the question is, what is jadaspota in relationship to atoms.
Et donc la question est quel est le rapport entre l'atome et cette explosion de matière, Jadaspota.
So the thought that I had, and I'll explain why, is that Jadaspota in an atom means the radioactive decay or splitting of an atom that happens naturally.
Donc l'idée que j'ai eue, c'est que ce Jadaspota, cette explosion de matière, pouvait être liée à comment on va appeler, le décay, la fission nucléaire, la fission radioactive.
And if this is true, then Microvita would be released and they would find the material to create the first life.
Et si cela est exact, les microvitas qui seraient libérés permettraient donc de procurer le matériel nécessaire pour amener la vie.
So we should look for radioactivity in relationship to the origin of life.
Donc peut-être on devrait faire une recherche sur la radioactivité en rapport avec l'émergence de la vie.
One of the possibilities where life first evolved is under the ocean.
Une des possibilités peut se trouver dans les océans, dans les fonds océaniques,
Where very hot water comes from under the bottom of the ocean. It's radioactive because it's mixed with the material under the ocean floor called magma.
Donc c'est dans ces fonds océaniques que l'on peut trouver de l'eau très chaude qui est mélangée avec le magma.
Okay, but and there are many cells, many bacteria that live around these hydrothermal vents. That's been discovered.
Et il y a donc dans ces cheminées hydrothermiques de nombreuses cellules et bactéries qui sont à proximité de cette sortie de magma mêlée à de l'eau très chaude.
And the biologists think that the chemicals in the hot water are a good source for creating the first living cells from the chemicals in the water.
Donc les biologistes pensent que les produits chimiques que l'on trouve dans seraient une bonne source dans l'eau chaude. C'est pour créer les premières formes de vie.
But they are not thinking about radioactivity as part of the process of the origin of life.
Mais ils n'incluent pas dans ce processus, dans leur hypothèse, la radioactivité comme faisant partie de ce processus de l'émergence de la vie.
When biologists think about radioactivity, they think of that as creating mutations, and mutations help to form new species.
Quand ils parlent de radioactivité, ils pensent à des mutations qui permettent à l'émergence de nouvelles espèces.
But that will not explain how the first life began, because there's no species, there's no DNA.
Ça semble juste, excepté que ça n'explique en rien la survenue des premières formes de vie, puisqu'il n'y avait pas d'espèces.
So I'm proposing that the radioactivity is what is releasing the microvita, and the microvita bring the DNA and form the first living beings.
Donc mon hypothèse serait que à travers la radioactivité, c'est la radioactivité, donc l'explosion nucléaire qui libère ces microvitas, et ce sont ces microvitas qui apportent ces informations d'ADN qui permettent la formation des premières formes de vie.
So the question is, again, why radioactivity? Is that a good explanation? And I want to look at the exact words of P.R. Sarkar to understand this.
Donc la question c'est à nouveau pourquoi la radioactivité et j'aimerais revenir sur les propos même de P.R. Sarkar à ce sujet.
Because it's quite an important idea. If it's true, it's the key to understanding how life could be created.
Donc si c'est une idée assez importante, si elle s'avère exacte. Sorry, I missed the last.
Oh, it's a key idea for knowing how life is created.
C'est une idée clé pour savoir comment la vie est créée.
So these are the words of P.R. Sarkar talking about this subject. One Dada named Dada Vimalananda gave these notes after talking to Baba. And
donc, ce sont des citations que Dada Vimalananda avait données dans ses écrits, qui étaient des conversations qu'il avait eues personnellement au sujet des microvitas avec Baba.
And these notes were published in a book that I wrote in 1988 called Microvita Cosmic Seeds of Life.
Donc c'était des citations que j'ai reprises dans mon livre que j'avais écrit en 1988, intitulé Les microvitas, semences cosmiques de vie.
Okay. Let's go sentence by sentence. When solid matter explodes at the atomic level, billions of microvita that have solidified to form the atoms may awaken.
Lorsque la matière solide, I go to my own translation. So,
Yeah.
Lorsque la matière solide explose au niveau atomique, des milliards de microvitas qui se sont solidifiés pour former l'atome peuvent se réveiller.
Microvita are dormant in the atom and very small.
Les microvitas sont sous forme latente ou dormante dans l'atome et très petits.
When Jadasphota occurs, microvita awaken and take on a different structure.
Quand une explosion de matière ou Jadasphota se produit, les microvitas s'activent, se réveillent et prennent une structure différente.
So let's just look at these sentences. When solid matter explodes, and then when Jadasphota occurs.
Donc reprenons ces phrases. Donc lorsque la matière solide explose au niveau atomique, lorsque l'explosion de matière se produit, Jadasphota.
So it seems that the explosion of solid matter is the same as Jadasphota.
Donc il semblerait que l'explosion de matière est la même chose que ce que Baba appelle Jadasphota.
Okay, but in the next paragraph it says if Jadasphota takes place in a solution of Fe2O3, you will get one structure.
Mais ce qu'il dit, c'est que si cette explosion donc Jadasphota se produit dans une solution, I don't know what it means, ferrugineuse, I don't know.
It's fair, you can call it ferric oxide.
Oxyde de fer, donc Fe2O3.
Okay, so again, he's saying Jadasphota is in a solution. It means a liquid is an explosion in the liquid.
Donc, il parle bien de cette explosion qui se passe à un niveau atomique, dans une solution, disons, d'oxyde de fer.
So when I was looking at these different sentences, I was thinking, how can you have an explosion in a liquid?
Donc, quand j'ai lu ça, je me suis dit, mais comment est-ce qu'on peut parler d'explosion dans un liquide?
And I realized that the explosion he might be talking about is a radioactive splitting of the atom, the fission of the radioactive atom.
Et donc, j'ai réalisé, mais il doit sans doute faire référence à la fission au niveau atomique.
And I was thinking, is there any other reasonable explanation for this? And I couldn't think of anything. I couldn't think of a better explanation than to say this is a radioactive atom splitting. That's the Jadasvota.
Donc, j'ai cherché, mais je n'ai pas trouvé de meilleure explication que celle-ci. Donc, c'est vraiment la fission de l'atome, hein, dans la radioactivité.
And it would make it more understandable that how you can have an explosion in a solution. It just means the atom is splitting, one or two or one at a time are splitting. It doesn't blow up the solution, it just produces the radioactive results in the solution.
Donc, je n'ai pas trouvé de meilleure réponse, c'est-à-dire que ça ne veut pas dire qu'il y a une explosion, mais il peut y avoir une fission de l'atome, un par un à la fois. Ça ne veut pas dire une explosion, mais juste ouais. What did you say the last?
Well, it will just produce it's like a chemical reaction of the nucleus.
C'est comme une réaction nucléaire.
Okay, the solution remains, but now the microvita, some of the microvita have been awakened and they can form the viruses to create the cells.
Donc ça a activé cette explosion atomique, cette fission, a activé les microvitas qui à ce moment-là, étant réveillés, peuvent former un virus et créer une cellule.
Yeah. Now, it doesn't mean all the billions microvita are awakened. Some of the atoms remain, and because when suppose a carbon atom, there's radioactive carbon. When it splits, it becomes a nitrogen atom, and it gives off an electron.
Donc, ça ne veut pas dire que tous les milliards d'atomes se réveillent en même temps. Cela veut dire que, par exemple, si on a un atome de carbone, il y a une fission et ça se transforme en azote, becomes nitrogen and...
Yes. And so most of the microvita remain in the atoms, and maybe only a few are awakened to make viruses.
Donc, la plupart des microvitas vont rester à l'intérieur de l'atome. Il n'y aura que quelques-uns qui se seront libérés, qui se seront activés et qui pourront créer un virus.
And you only need a few microvita because once you have a cell formed, that cell will start reproducing and making other cells.
Il suffit que quelques-uns qui se réveillent, parce que juste ces quelques-uns vont permettre à une forme cellulaire de se former et à d'autres formes cellulaires de se former.
So it may be that when you have one radioactive atom splits, you could just get one cell is created.
Et il se peut donc après cette fission radioactive qu'une seule cellule se crée.
Now I'm thinking how to make an experiment to test this. If one microvita comes out and makes a virus, and the virus makes a cell, that can be checked in an experiment.
Et donc, j'essaie d'élaborer une expérience, une expérimentation qui puisse prouver mon hypothèse, qui puisse prouver que l'on peut effectivement libérer un microvita qui va ensuite former un virus, qui ensuite va former une cellule. Former une cellule.
Yeah. And P.R. Sarkar says that the way the virus forms depends on the chemicals in the solution.
Et une autre chose qu'il a dite, c'est que la façon dont un virus se forme dépend aussi de l'environnement chimique dans lequel il se trouve.
He gave two different possibilities. He said, if this Fe2O3 is there, you will get one structure, and if a different chemical, Fe3O4, it will get a different structure of the virus.
Bon, il a donné deux exemples, deux possibilités. Mettons qu'il y ait une solution d'oxyde de fer, FeDO3, ça va donner une certaine structure et qui sera différente si c'est Fe3O4.
Now, Fe3O4 is called magnetite. I looked it up.
Ah, good. Donc l'autre formule s'appelle magnétite.
And magnetite, it's also called lodestone. It's the natural magnet.
Lodestone?
Lodestone.
Loaded,
the stone.
like loaded.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. And so I think that P.R. Sarkar was also giving a suggestion for doing an experiment. We should use maybe these two different iron oxides. We should use them in an experiment that will help us get living cells.
Donc peut-être c'est une suggestion que P.R. Sarkar nous fait d'une possibilité d'expérimentation, d'utiliser ces deux oxydes de fer et pour nous amener à créer une cellule vivante.
Okay, so let's summarize what I've just said. I've said compare the sentences when matter explodes at an atomic level and when Jadasphota occurs. What I've said is that the explosion of matter is the same as Jadasphota.
Donc, pour résumer, ce que j'ai dit, c'est comparer cette explosion de matière et Jadasphota.
So Jadasphota is not only for a supernova explosion. It can also be a radioactive explosion, in my opinion.
Donc, ce que j'en conclus, c'est que Jadasphota n'est pas seulement une supernova qui explose dans le cosmos, mais on peut parler de Jadasphota aussi pour une explosion radioactive.
Because he did say that Jadasphota can occur gradually in wear and tear. It means when things just slowly wear out and break down.
Donc, il a dit aussi que le Jadasphota peut se produire progressivement quand il y a usure.
Okay, so my proposal is that radioactivity can be a good explanation for Jadasphota in chemical reactions.
Et donc, dans ma proposition, c'est que la radioactivité peut être une bonne explication de Jadasphota.
So that's what I'm saying. A reasonable assumption is that Jadasphota here is the radioactive decay of an atom caused by the splitting of the nucleus of the atom.
Donc, c'est que une supposition tout à fait raisonnable serait que le Jadasphota correspond à une fusion atomique radioactive.
Okay. And then he says later, when a microvitum has been awakened, a virus adapts to the environment of the cell.
Et ce qu'il dit également, c'est que quand un microvita s'active, se réveille, un virus va s'adapter à l'environnement où il se trouve.
Okay, now here he's saying, he mentions a cell, but if there's a chemical environment that has all the ingredients, then you don't have to have a cell. You just have all the ingredients are necessary. And then the virus can make the cell.
Il mentionne une cellule, mais si on a tous les ingrédients à notre disposition dans un environnement chimique, il n'est pas utile de créer une cellule.
You may know that the way a virus works is it goes into a cell and it starts reproducing. This is the normal way a virus works.
Vous savez peut-être sans doute que la manière de fonctionner d'un virus, c'est qu'il rentre dans la cellule. And what? He goes in.
And that's the way a virus works, is to reproduce itself in a cell.
Il se reproduit dans la cellule. It was a theme for Goravati, I think.
Yeah. But if there's no cell, but if the ingredients are there, that will also allow the virus to reproduce and to make a cell.
Donc, s'il n'y a pas de cellule, mais si les ingrédients sont présents, cela va permettre aussi à un virus de se reproduire.
Okay, so that's my proposal. So putting these ideas together leads to an experimental prediction.
Donc, c'est ma proposition de rassembler toutes ces idées. And what? Sorry.
It will lead to an experimental prediction.
Et d'apporter une prédiction sur le plan de l'expérimentation.
Yeah. So the prediction is radioactive atoms will release microvita carrying DNA or RNA information.
Donc la prédiction, c'est que si un atome radioactif libère des microvitas, et les microvitas sont porteurs d'ADN et d'ARN,
microvita will develop into a virus with the physical DNA.
Donc ils vont se développer en un virus avec un ADN physique.
And these viruses, in a suitable chemical mixture or medium, will generate living cells, which can be detected and analyzed.
Donc avec une mixture dans un environnement chimique adapté, ce virus will generate what?
Will generate living cells which can be detected and analyzed.
Ils vont générer des cellules vivantes qui pourront être détectées et analysées.
And so this is an experiment. If no other explanation for the appearance of living cells can be found, then you have to say that the radioactivity is the cause.
Donc, s'il n'y a pas d'autre explication possible dans cette expérimentation, donc on aura la preuve que c'est la radioactivité qui a permis l'émergence de la vie.
And the radioactivity released microvita carrying the DNA information to make the cell.
Et que par cette fusion, cette libération de microvita, qu'on aura à disposition cet ADN ou cet ARN.
Okay, so here's I drew a very quick picture. I'll make it better next time, but here's the experiment. You have okay?
Rapide. Voilà l'expérience que je propose.
Here's one bottle. It contains a radioactive material, let's say carbon-14.
Donc voici une bouteille qui contient mettons, du carbone 14.
So every few seconds, it's having one radioactivity, let's say. One atom splits and the Geiger counter goes click.
À chaque fois qu'il y a un atome qui se libère, le compteur Geiger va faire un clic. Un bruit.
Okay, so each click means one atom has split.
Donc à chaque fois qu'on entend ce clic, ça veut dire qu'un atome, il y a une fission d'un atome.
Okay, now I'm assuming that this is the one click for each radioactive atom. That's of course an ideal situation.
Bon, c'est une représentation, donc ce serait, pour simplifier, quoi. Un clic correspond à un atome, mais c'est une simplification.
Okay, now if the atom is radioactive and the microvita are released, then here's another bottle, and both of these bottles are closed and sealed. I've put a cork in the bottles, but it would probably be something better than a cork. But here's the piece of magnetite, and here's a solution of different chemicals for life. Okay.
Donc, dans l'autre bouteille, donc il y a eu, après la fission d'atomes, il y a eu des microvitas se sont libérés. Là, je mis dans une autre bouteille que j'ai scellée, c'est-à-dire avec un bouchon comment on appelle ça, du liège. Mais bien sûr, ça sera plus sophistiqué pour une expérimentation réelle. Et dans cette bouteille, j'ai mis un morceau de magnétite avec des éléments de what did you say?
Like chemical elements for life.
Des éléments importants pour faire générer la vie.
For making bacteria, like nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus.
Donc par exemple comme l'azote, l'oxygène, le phosphore, pour faire naître des bactéries.
So when the microvita come out of the atom, microvita have no problem to go from one bottle to the other because they travel through solids, they travel through liquids, they travel through light and sound. So microvita cross from one bottle to the other.
Donc pour un microvita, il n'y a aucun problème de traverser la matière. Ça peut traverser la matière, enfin tout ce qui est solide, lumière, son, etc. Et donc ça peut aller très bien d'une bouteille à l'autre.
So when the microvita are here, they find the magnetite, and that is what they need to create a large form to create a virus.
Et là, elles vont trouver la magnétite dont elles ont besoin pour créer une forme large, pour créer un virus.
And they have all the DNA and RNA are in the virus.
Et ils ont tout le matériel nécessaire pour créer de l'ADN et de l'ARN.
And here all the chemicals are needed for the virus to reproduce, and it will actually create a new bacteria because it is a virus for the bacteria.
Donc ici, il y aura tous les ingrédients nécessaires pour le virus pour se reproduire et pour produire de nouvelles bactéries.
Because a complete RNA of a bacteria will allow bacteria to create a new bacteria. So all the ingredients are there, and so here's a picture of a little bacteria that is formed on the magnetite.
Et là, j'ai dessiné une bactérie sur la magnétite. Donc là, on aura tous les ingrédients qui permettent le complet à une bactérie de produire d'autres bactéries.
And here's a camera to take a picture of what's going on. So it will see the bacteria appearing on the magnetite.
Et là, on aura une caméra qui permettra de filmer donc la bactérie qui apparaîtra sur la magnétite.
And then in the next radioactive decay will produce more microvita, and they'll produce another bacteria.
Et là, on aura à nouveau une autre fission d'atomes qui libérera de nouveaux microvita et qui permettront de produire d'autres bactéries.
And it could be a different kind of bacteria because there are many different kinds of microvita in an atom, not all for the same thing.
Et donc, on aura d'autres formes de bactéries, car les microvita ne sont pas tous les mêmes, donc ils se libéreront et créeront d'autres formes de bactéries.
Okay, so there will be a time delay from when the radioactive click, okay, and then the bacteria forms. Maybe it will form in 1 minute, or maybe it will form in 1 second. I don't know, but there'll be a time delay, and so you can see the relationship between radioactive click and formation of bacteria.
Donc il y a un délai entre le déclic qui signifie que l'atome s'est libéré et le temps de la formation d'une bactérie. Ça peut être 1 minute, 1 seconde, difficile à dire, mais...
Yeah. And radioactive clicks do not happen every 2 seconds. You know, radioactivity is irregular. It might go click, 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 click. It's irregular. It's like random. Radioactive decay follows probability laws. So the creation of the bacteria will always go with the probability, the same rate as the random clicking of the Geiger count.
C'est intéressant parce que en fait quand ces processus radioactifs se produisent et qu'on entend ce bruit de clic de compteur Geiger, c'est irrégulier, ça ne se produit pas avec régularité. Et ce qui serait intéressant de voir, c'est que avec la caméra, on pourra filmer ces bactéries qui vont se former et peut-être avec le même rythme, même si avec un temps un décalage, mais avec ces mêmes... yeah, so you would have the same timing.
The same timing.
Not simultaneous, but the same timing, yeah.
Yeah, and this will show that the bacteria are being produced in relationship to the Geiger counter, which means in relationship to the radioactive decay.
Yeah. Donc, montrera que les bactéries se produisent en relation avec la décomposition, comment on appelle ça, decay. Yeah, I forgot the word, but la radioactivité.
Yeah. So then you can ask the question, let's assume that this happened. And let's assume that there's no cheating and no leaking of bacteria, that everything is done in a very controlled way. Then how else can we explain the production of the bacteria? It's related to the radioactive decay of the atom. It seems like that's the only explanation.
Donc, on suppose que tout ceci se produit sans qu'il y ait aucune triche, aucune fuite de bactéries d'une manière contrôlée. Et que comment autrement dans ce cas-là pourra-t-on expliquer la production de bactéries?
And a molecular biologist would not have any other way to explain where that bacteria came from.
Donc, un biologiste moléculaire n'aura pas d'autre manière d'expliquer d'où provient cette bactérie.
So, of course, you could analyze the photographs and you could watch the bacteria just appear slowly. That will all be on the film.
Et bien sûr, on pourra aussi observer le film que l'on aura obtenu en filmant la bactérie qui apparaîtra.
Okay. Then it will be up to the scientists to find out a theory for what caused this bacteria in full form to appear from a radioactive decay.
Donc, ça sera aux scientifiques, bien sûr, d'établir une théorie pour explicative, pour expliquer comment cette bactérie, dans sa forme complète, est apparue à partir d'une décomposition radioactive.
And I think they will have to come to the conclusion that the radioactivity provided the code, the DNA code, to produce the bacteria. And you can give that, whatever did it, you can give it the name Microvita. And therefore you can say that Microvita created the bacteria.
Donc, on arrivera sans doute à la conclusion que c'est par la radioactivité que on a obtenu l'ADN, le code d'ADN qui a permis de produire la bactérie, et on donnera le nom de Microvita qui a permis de créer cette bactérie.
And maybe there will be no other explanation for how this happened. Therefore, there will have to be a new theory of the origin of life from radioactive atoms. And that will be a big revolution in biology.
Et peut-être il n'y aura pas d'autres explications de comment cela s'est produit. Et à ce moment-là, ce sera une nouvelle théorie qui émergera pour expliquer l'origine de la vie et de l'évolution.
Yeah.
Ce sera une grande révolution en biologie.
And the radioactive atom had the information to create a bacteria. Where did that information come from? It came from some place. You can say a cosmic intelligence that created the atom, created the RNA that created the bacteria.
Donc,
There was an intelligence that created the RNA that created the bacteria.
On sera peut-être conduit à remonter à la source et se dire qu'il y a derrière tout ça une intelligence cosmique qui a permis la naissance de cette bactérie et des... Ouais, yes.
Okay, now this is a thought experiment. We don't know that this is going to happen.
Donc cette expérience, cette expérimentation, elle est hypothétique. On ne sait pas si on parviendra à réunir les conditions pour la réaliser.
But it is it's a normal, you can say a normal experiment. The normal experimental process is being used to test a hypothesis. Do microvita from radioactive atoms cause bacteria? That's the hypothesis being tested in this experiment.
C'est une hypothèse. C'est un processus expérimental qui est testé qui est utilisé pour tester une hypothèse. Est-ce que so do the microvita, is that what you said?
Yeah, the microvita are from the radioactive atom, carry the RNA that produce the bacteria.
L'hypothèse, est-ce que les microvita sont ceux porteurs de l'ADN, de l'ARN, qui permettent de créer la bactérie?
And if that is the best explanation for what happened, then by the rules of science, you have to accept the hypothesis. If there's no better explanation.
Si c'est la meilleure explication, donc selon les règles de la science, s'il n'y a pas de meilleure explication, c'est celle qui sera retenue. So if there's no better explanation, this is the one that will remain. Is that what you say?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
And so this is what I'm proposing, that that's an experiment like this, connecting radioactive atoms and looking for the creation of bacteria in a separate container, that will be a test for the theory of microvita.
Donc c'est une expérimentation comme celle-ci qui permet de connecter la radioactivité et la fission atomique avec dans un conteneur séparé.
And if a bacteria are produced, then atheists will have to say, where was this cosmic intelligence? Where did this information come from in the atom to produce it? They will have to try to find some other explanation, but they may struggle to find some other explanation.
Et par exemple, si une personne athée essaye de comprendre d'où vient cette influence cosmique, il aura du mal, il risque d'avoir du mal à trouver une autre explication.
And so, but I think I will end at this point, except I would like to ask Guruvati's opinion if what I explained was a clear explanation for testing the Microvita hypothesis.
Donc, j'aimerais conclure sur ce point en demandant à Guruvati son opinion. Guruvati, tu es là? Est-ce que c'est une explication assez claire que je donnais pour cette possibilité de test expérimental?
Yes, it's a clear explanation. It makes sense. And sure, it will be interesting to try it.
Yeah, I think it needs to be tried by different people in different places who will make different kinds of experiments, and maybe one or two will succeed.
Do you want to prendre le relais, Guruvati, parce que je m'aperçois quelqu'un dit que ma voix est trop basse et c'est dommage, je n'ai pas su plus tôt. Go ahead, if you can translate, Guruvati, because my voice is too low apparently. I'm sorry.
La question de Dada est de savoir ce qu'il propose en fait comme solution pour démontrer l'existence des Microvita avait un sens. Et j'ai répondu que oui, et donc il serait intéressant de tester cela. Et il a ajouté que le mieux, c'est que ce soit testé à différents endroits par différentes personnes. Yes, you can.
Yeah. Because if the result is good, it has to be proved very clearly, not only one time, but it happens regularly, repeatedly, and in a variety of circumstances. Otherwise, people will not believe it.
Donc, il faudra en fait que ce soit une expérience qui soit répétitive et qui puisse être démontrée, la même chose soit démontrée à différents endroits pour que les sceptiques puissent y croire.
And the methodology has to be perfect so that no one can complain that there was any problem.
La méthodologie doit être parfaite pour que personne ne puisse en fait se plaindre qu'il puisse y avoir une fraude.
So it needs a team of physicists and biologists and chemists to do this experiment so they can together plan the perfect experiment design.
Et il faudra donc une équipe de biologistes, de chimistes, de physiciens pour démontrer effectivement que et pour travailler ensemble et démontrer cette théorie-là.
Because this would really be a revolutionary discovery in science if it happened. And I think Guruvati, I think you will agree.
Donc cela sera une révolution en science si cela est démontré.
So I'm open to any other questions from the people listening about my presentation.
Il y a d'autres questions par rapport aux présentations? There was one question in the chat.
Yes, I would like to ask exactly about the question in the chat.
Tadej, tu peux reprendre s'il te plaît? J'arrive.
Yes, I want to ask the question I put in the chat about the Big Bang. You want to translate?
Dada, you can take it in French also.
No, I could you please translate it? I can't see the chat.
No, Dada Gyanananda can translate in French.
Oh, okay. So let me make the question so Rudresha can catch it well. According to the theory of Brahma Chakra, the idea of Jadaspata is of celestial bodies. So now it seems Baba also has introduced, I did not see this text yet, introduced this possibility of Jadaspata in a local area where he spoke it as wear and tear.
Yes, you can check that.
Yes, I remember. So what I was thinking, I understood very well the idea that through the nuclear reaction, actually I thought about this when Baba says that mind comes out of matter. And I was imagining that this celestial force, Bala, acting on 5 elements to create the Jadaspata, is actually cosmic forces, some type of huge reaction, which make the matter be dissolved and become more subtle than the original matter becomes the mind.
Yes,
So
there's
the mind.
no mind in Jadaspata. There's only an explosion of matter into the subtler forms.
Exactly. So Jadaspata, what I understood, that the formation of mind comes out of not Jadaspata, but of life, physical life.
Yes, that's correct.
Cosmic life. Yes,
that's correct.
Physical life comes out of the condensation of this internal force when it wins. When the internal force is winning, then
yes.
you have a nucleus in the object and you have matter. Now,
that's
this
right.
celestial body which is made undergoes further pressure of the cosmic force or static force, and that's where the mind comes out of matter.
That's true. That's the explanation that came before Microvita.
Yes, then when Baba spoke about Microvita exactly, then he was telling that the Microvita appears exactly as you're explaining, that in the atom there are 2 parts. One is subtle, one is Microvita is subtle. And through this external pressure, of cosmic force, within the atoms comes this activation of those microvitas, which comes out to create physical structures.
Yeah, he talks about the powdering down of matter to create chitanu or chita. Now, the powdering down of matter could be the production of microvita from the atoms.
Yes, exactly. But then this powdering down, it seems like that powdering down, is creating an acceleration within the atom of microvita, from where life comes, from where life starts itself. So I did not see it as if coming from Jadaspata, but rather from this powdering down.
No, but the point is, where did the organizing force come from that produced that organization of the 5 fundamental factors with mind at the nucleus? That we have to think how microvita plays a role in that, because microvita is creating life in the universe. So was a new idea that has to be added to the cosmic cycle of creation.
So then the question is, do you think microvita start acting in the cycle of creation before the formation of 5 elements, or rather at the formation of life, material life, means the physical macro bodies are made and microvita are dormant within them?
Well, I think there are still questions that need to be answered, but Baba does say that microvita exist at the silver line between idea and matter. And he's talking about right at the beginning of Sanchara, it seems that and and so I think Microvita are actually created at the beginning, not at the beginning of Sanchara, but within the cosmic mind before the creation of etheric factor. So
that is very interesting. Let's study more.
And he talks about it's the silver line, and he says if you powder down matter, you get Microvita, and if you powder down Microvita, you would get idea. So when you look at it that way, it sounds like Microvita are being created right before etheric factor. And in idea and ideology, Baba talks about the celestial bodies and planets and earth that are all formed in Sanchara. Now you have to get the earth, you have to have atoms. And Baba also said Microvita form, billions of Microvita form atoms. So it looks, I think most of the evidence of what Baba said puts Microvita forming at the beginning of, before etheric factor. Now, Baba did make one statement that Microvita are creations in the returning phase, or he calls the internal phase. And that's Pratisanchara, and that seems like a contradiction, but no one has the solution to how to understand everything that Baba said.
Yes, but that is what I think, that it might be that the 5 elements, though, are at the silver line between mind and matter. The 5 elements are matter, but they are not yet really matter, because they become matter only when those 5 elements are combined and they create a celestial body. That's when the matter actually do come. Before the celestial body is formed, we don't have matter yet. We have the 5 fundamental factors. And when the Jadaspota takes place in this body which is made, what Baba says, that explosion goes back, the element goes back to the matter. So I was thinking that Microvita are activated in this, when the matter is formed and the external forces are still acting on that matter, then that nuclear energy, actually I used to, in my courses, in my class, I speak of nuclear energy, but I did not have any base for that. But now I'm seeing that is possible. A nuclear reaction takes place in the matter and powders down that matter to a level of mind. And the Microvita within that then are activated, which goes on to form the physical body. But now how I explain the physical body, that I'll have to take your help. I don't know how to explain that. But how to explain the mind, that I understand, that really it is powdered down, and that stuff, mind's form is made, and that mind form gets associated with the protozoic cells, as you were telling, with the protozoic cell to actually form life, one rudimental mind, and one protozoic cell whose clash and cohesions will make it actually evaluate. So
yeah, see, all of these things still have to be discussed because Jadasvota occurs as the explosion of a dead and dying star. But even before Jadasvota, Baba talks about the decreasing interatomic and intermolecular distances between aerial factor, luminous factor, liquid factor, solid factor. So he uses the term decreasing interatomic and intermolecular distances when he's talking about Sanchara. That means molecules and atoms exist in Sanchara. And then they can be composed of Microvita. That he said they're composed of Microvita. So he
says that to explain the process of Sanchara in a scientific way, he uses this system. The decrease of the distance between atoms and molecules. So atoms are already existing, and therefore we can say that it is before in the eternal fact it starts.
That's my current opinion.
Decreasing starts.
And I don't know why he said Microvita are creations in the returning phase if they are created before ether. But maybe there's some understanding that we can find.
Maybe it could be that the creation of matter in a decreasing form until all five are combined, then only then this Microvita. No, we cannot say that either.
No, because
Yes.
the atoms are existing even before all five fundamental factors are there.
Yes, because the first lecture that he gave, I remember you wrote this book on the cosmic seed of life, very fantastic book, in fact. It's a fantastic book he wrote. He gave, the first lecture that he gave was the mysterious emanation of cosmic factor. And the feeling I got at that time was that is a cosmic factor. I did not see like effect of elements. I saw it like Parama Purusha emanates the Microvita. I feel it.
Yeah, that's emanating from the cosmic mind, but they always remain within the cosmic mind because there's nothing outside of the cosmic mind. So,
yes.
So, but they are emanations of the cosmic mind. That's quite sure to me. Okay.
So you would say that factor is mind, actually. Cosmic factor, cosmic mind, the same.
Yes. Yeah, and I think Baba also said someplace that Microvita come from cosmic mind. I think he used the term cosmic mind in another place.
But then when you say cosmic mind doesn't, okay.
It's the cosmic mind that is more subtle than matter. It's because cosmic Chitta also contains things that are more subtle than physical matter. So, in the area of idea, cosmic mind contains ideas that are more subtle than energy or Microvita or matter.
Fantastic.
So I think it's starting to come together that we're also starting to understand cosmic cycle of creation better in thinking about Microvita.
Yes. In fact, I was talking to Guru Bhatti once also, and I took some time to study about Microvita. And I saw, when I went into the mental flow of it, I understood that we can even explain the whole creation using the theory of Microvita. But
I think so.
Yes, we can explain most of the things that Darwin spoke about, how it happens. But then this question you put in this experiment, maybe it should be run so that we have some proof that yet something is there creating life, creating the bacteria.
If we don't have it, we need some scientific experiment. So it's not enough to say that there is intelligence design without saying how it happened.
It becomes a religion. It becomes, from scientific point of view, like Baba said, Baba said we agree, Baba said, but science is not obliged to agree.
Yeah, it is intelligent design, but it's the cosmic mind creating Microvita that create viruses and that actually do the work. So that makes it a natural process.
But what do you think of this other experiment? I don't know if that can be an experiment or a research in a big laboratory. Because when Baba speaks about these things of atoms, he speaks of two sides of the atom. One is the crude part of the atom, and one is the subtle part of the atom.
I think that has to come at a later stage because we don't know which part of an atom is crude or subtle. But this particular experiment that I'm proposing doesn't ask questions about the crude and subtle part of atoms. That might come as in the theory that to help explain the creation of bacteria, you might have to talk about Microvita that are coming from the subtle part of the atom. That might be
we could also make an hypothesis.
Since
mind comes out of matter, and science is not yet able to show how mind comes out of matter, we can say that within matter there is a subtle part which generates mind and the crude part which generates the body.
Yes, but that also has to be proved. So always some experimental proof is needed. We can hypothesize anything, but we need scientific results that makes it possible to say only this is the explanation and not this is the explanation. That's why I like this, because this experiment, you never even have to use the word Microvita to do the experiment. But the result of the experiment shows that radioactivity of atoms creates bacteria that are fully formed and even familiar, recognized bacteria. So how that happened, then the explanation is needed, and biologists have to come up with their own explanation if they don't like the Microvita explanation.
Yes. I was in some of the class I gave, I used this experiment of Jagadish Chandra Bose. Jagadish Chandra Bose.
Yes, I know.
So why we cannot use it? It was a fact. He proved that you can grow the flowers without without the pins, just by talking to it. Something intelligent is in that stuff which is changing the whole process.
That showed that plants have mind and sensitivity. That's
and
true.
Capacity to change, capacity to reorganize their own molecular activity and productions.
But then the question is, how are they doing it? There still is the question of how they're doing it.
Yes,
so probably the plants are using Microvita also. They're attracting the Microvita that help them do what they do.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, we've been going about 2.5 hours, which I think is, we've had a great discussion, and I think we need to draw it to a close, but I really appreciate everyone who's here and who's participated in this. And I hope if this has been recorded, it can also be shared.
Yes, Dada. It's been recorded.
Okay, so shall we end the recording? We can still stay, but you can turn off the recording at any point now, I think.
Oh, yes, okay, but I think we can still take some few questions, Dada.
We can take them and have them still recorded. That's fine with me.
Mm-hmm. So my question is, donc je demande à Dada, okay, si on peut prendre d'autres questions, il dit oui, okay, d'accord. So my question is, what is the relationship, or is there a, let me say, a complete shift between Einstein theory of energy,
yes,
which is the acceleration of the mass versus times the acceleration square?
Yeah.
Is there a shift in this formulation in regards to microbiome?
Yes, and the shift is not in the equation, but the shift is that the energy and microvita are not the same thing, and that microvita are the controllers and containers of energy. So that, and Baba said that matter is not bottles of energy. Microvita is not bottled up energy. Microvita is, I'm sorry, I'm mixing my words. He says that matter is not bottled up energy. He said Microvita is bottled. Excuse me, I'm saying it one more time. Matter is not bottles. Sorry, Microvita is not bottled up energy. No, I keep saying Microvita. Sorry, I'm tired. Matter is not bottled up energy. Yes. Matter is bottles of energy. So
okay.
Okay, so Microvita are the bottle, and the energy is in the bottle. So the energy is still E equals mc squared, but the microvita are holding the energy in the energy of the microvita itself. That's where the energy is. It's in the motion of the microvita. But and it may be mc squared, but the mass itself, the fact that you can have particular particles, it's because of microvita. Electrons exist because there's microvita for making electrons. Quarks exist because they're microvita for quarks. And each of those contains a certain amount of energy, but it's the microvita which is the container of the energy. Baba says that the two main facts are microvita and energy. In his new way of thinking, in his talk called Microvita and cosmology, he proposed that Microvita is one side and energy is the other side. And they are different things, but they work together to create matter and propensities.
Okay.
We still have E equals MC squared, but the energy is still energy even when it's in the controlled by the Microvita. It doesn't form solid
is it an
stuff.
evolution? Is it an evolution in the explanation of Einstein?
Yes, it's
Or
an
a
evolution
combination?
because Einstein doesn't have any explanation for why particular particles are formed. They just exist. They have a certain spin, certain mass, but there's no explanation why any material particle even exists. It's just a fact.
Okay.
So Microvita explained that there are particles that actually take energy and form the particles. That's an advance on Einstein.
Okay. Y a-t-il d'autres questions? Do we have some questions?
Namaskar.
Namaskar.
Yes, Paramashiva.
I'm switching away from the screen sharing so I can see what's happening. We're still recording though, yes.
Oui, je disais que microvitum signifie petite vie. Donc, si on dit que microvitum signifie petite vie, je pense que
life, yes.
les microvites ont été créés dans la deuxième phase de la création, parce que c'est dans cette phase-là que la vie apparaît. C'est ce que je pense.
Okay. Paramashiva, can you say it in English?
But I understand you're saying that microvita are created in the second phase, but there's also evidence that atoms exist in the first phase and atoms are created by microvita. So it seems like a contradiction. Yes. And we don't know the solution to this, what seems like a contradiction.
Dada Gyanananda wants to say something?
Yes, I wanted just to add to what Dada just said, to what Rudresha just said a while ago. Is it possible that the atoms are existing for the Sanchara before the creation of, but actually, as you were explaining a while ago, the activation of those microvita only happens when the physical structure is there. In the process of formation, they are existing, but they are not active. But then they're activated, creates minds, and maybe also human bodies after that.
That's when they're activated. They're activated yes. when the atom basically breaks up and releases and awakens the yes. microvita. Then yes. they form viruses, then they form living cells. But when yes. they're in atoms, they're kind of dormant or sleeping.
Yes. But the other question which came in my mind as I was speaking is he also said that microvita creates structures also, bodies. These are individual body or celestial body too.
No, these are the individual bodies of living beings. They're also formed yes. by microvita.
Yes. So then in that case, it is really possible that microvita comes to life exactly only when they're activated, even though they're dormant within the 5 elements.
Well, they still have some life, even though they're dormant. When they're yes. activated, they organize the energy of the physical bodies to make it a living body. The reason a body is living because there's the living quality of organization of between mind and matter. And Baba yes, says that life is psychophysical parallelism.
Yes, but before the formation of the physical structure, there is no yes. such type of parallelism. It is life stage when microvita gets activated is physical life, where a nucleus is created in the celestial body. There is a nucleus, and then we fuel the activation of cosmic energy. Then comes the mind out through this activation. Now, how that mind gets associated with the bodies, small bodies, which you call protoplasm, protozoas, that is...
yeah. I think what you're saying, when you think of the nucleus that's formed, you're thinking that it's a physical nucleus, but
Yes,
Baba
of the
uses the
planet.
term,
Of the
Baba says
planet.
that in a living body, the nucleus is the mind itself. The nucleus is the controller of the energies of the physical body. So the nucleus is a mind. It's not a physical nucleus. Like, it's not like the nucleus of an atom. The nucleus that's formed when life occurs, it's the mind is the nucleus, and the mind organizes and controls the vital energy, which now we can think of as microvita, and the microvita control the physical body. Does that make sense? That the nucleus is the mind. So the mind is created at the time that the nucleus forms, and the central forces, form the living structure. It's living because it has the mind at the nucleus.
Yes. Do you mean there is mind in planet Earth, for example? The nucleus of the planet Earth has mind.
No, I'm not talking about. I'm talking about a living being. Now, whether the Earth has a mind, I don't think Baba would say that the Earth has a mind. It's still the 5 fundamental factors.
And life, in that case, when a celestial body is made, Baba says a physical life with a nucleus at the center. Then life comes out of that one when on that celestial body there is condition, proper condition, atmospheric and chemical and all these things, and the powdering down of some particles, some space generates mind. So what Paramashiva was telling, that is possible, that really this mind you're telling with the mind is if it happens, is from this point up, not before.
The individual mind is in Pratisanchara.
Yes.
Yeah, but the individual bodies are the molecules that form the physical body are in Pratisanchara before they are connected, you can say, to the mind, and to create a living being. But Jadasvota, the way Baba talks about it, is just the explosion of a celestial body, and that does not itself produce any mind. The material has to come back again together to form and to find the right environment to create the first living structure. Jadasvota of exploding celestial bodies does not produce mind.
Yes, the Jadaspota which produces mind is what you explained well.
Yeah.
Which is the localized Jadaspota on the cosmic body, because life is
when you say on the
possible
cosmic body, it's the Jadasvota that I'm proposing is
on the
just
celestial body.
It's of a single
body.
atom. A single atom
Yes.
has Jadasvota, which releases the microvita,
Yes,
some of the microvita in that atom, and those awakened microvita form viruses containing DNA. The DNA code is formed into actual physical DNA. It's organized by the microvita to actually produce the physical double helix. That's created by microvita action, using the code for microvita, that the code of DNA that the microvita brought with it from the atom.
That's fantastic. That is something new that I'll have to look at. It would be nice to
okay, yeah, that's what I'm proposing. And Baba did say that the microvita are emitted from the cosmic mind carrying the code of DNA or RNA.
But
Yes.
it is important. It is important to say that that Jadaspota is a localized one, because when you take the Jadaspota as an expression of the celestial body, then there is no creation, because we understand creation in Tantra, at least, that first the interior force and external force, the interior force is winning, then the nucleus is created within the body, and then
that's right.
structure.
That's not Jadaspota. That's not Jadaspota.
The Jadaspota happens when the external force is winning. and then the whole celestial body explodes.
That's
And
right.
when the
There's
whole
no life
celestial body
formed at that time. That's correct.
Then there is no life. Then there is no life. So there is
That's
only
correct.
life if on the formed celestial body within us, some particle of it, you know, in how the mind comes, you know, some
Yeah.
point of it is pulverized higher than the original matter.
And that will happen at
So-
the surface of the earth, probably. It's not going to
Yes.
happen in a star. It's going to happen at the surface
Exactly.
of the earth, where you have a proper environment of all five fundamental
Exactly.
factors.
So, Dada,
And
Then you can get
yes,
the first living cell.
Dada, can we complete this this question in maybe in a different way? What is the difference between Jadasphota and Manashphota? I understand the explanation, the definition, but what is the quantitative difference between both?
I only understand that Baba said that there are different kinds of sphota. There, and Jadasphota is the sphota of matter, and there is
Okay.
also a sphota which is called Manasphota, which
Yeah.
must be an explosion of mind. But as far as I know, Baba did not give any more explanation of that.
I don't know if my inference is correct or not.
Yes.
I would say that the Manaspota, when I say my mind is exploding, I think it is when the mind expands ad infinitum, you know, expands that. So I don't see it as the distraction of mind. I see it more
You
as
could be right. Yeah.
the expansion of mind.
A rapid expansion of mind is like an explosion of mind.
Yes.
But that could be.
But I have to say that you have brought up very important elements on how to think on how actually the physical body comes up, because we simply understand well how the mind comes up with the nuclear reaction. The
Yeah.
mind is created, but how this mind meets the body, how body is created, that this mind comes in, how this
That's
protozoa
where
cell
the
comes up.
biochemistry comes in, and that's why RNA and DNA are needed for this explanation of the organization of the physical body. Baba didn't explain that in the cosmic cycle of creation. We need Microvita for that explanation.
Yes.
And that's something that biochemists, they don't know the answer to where RNA and DNA come from. They can't explain.
So, Dada, please, what is what are the equipments we need to undertake this experiment you are proposing?
Well, I've given an ideal diagram, but a real experiment has to use a real Geiger counter, which counts. It doesn't count every click. So some experimental design that is needed. I think it should separate the radioactive material in one container and the chemical solution in a different material container. I think that will simplify the problem, because Microvita can travel from one container to the other. You don't keep the radioactive material separate from the chemical solution, because that means you can't say, oh, the Microvita came directly out. You can't say that the RNA came directly out of the atoms, because atoms cannot go from one chemical, one bottle to another. Only Microvita can, or you can say maybe gamma rays go from one bottle to another, but gamma rays are not created in every radioactive disintegration. Carbon-16 does not produce, carbon-14, radioactive carbon, does not produce gamma rays. It produces one electron. It also produces an anti-neutrino, but that just goes off somewhere else. And then the carbon atom changes into a nitrogen atom. But there's no gamma rays created from carbon-16. So, but to make the actual experimental design, it needs to be thought through very carefully. How will you detect those bacteria, normally bacteria, you have to put them on a slide and use a compound microscope to look at them.
Yeah.
So how are you going to see microvita appearing just on a piece of magnetite unless you have some way of measuring them? And so that has to be someone who really knows about microscopy has to help design the experiment to know how to see bacteria that are produced in this experiment. It needs
Paramashiva has his hand up. He wants to ask a question. Paramashiva?
I prefer to speak in French. I am easy in French.
Go ahead. Maybe someone will translate.
OK. Je disais que je crois que Baba dit que les microvitas naissent, grandissent et meurent. Peut-être qu'en expliquant ce processus-là, on peut bien comprendre comment est-ce que ces microvitas sont nés, comment ils grandissent et comment ils meurent.
Yes.
And so he says, somewhere Baba says,
Voilà.
explains how microvitum or microvita are born, grow, die, or decay and die, something like this. So
Yes.
maybe he, in his thought, maybe by understanding this process, we can understand the entire theory.
But we don't know. Baba did say that, but we don't know how long it takes to a microvita to die because, for example, an electron has been existing for millions of years or billions of years. Are the microvita dying and being born within an electron or not? We don't know. We need a theory of how that happens.
Mm-hmm.
We know that positive microvita can eat negative microvita to fight a disease. That's one way microvita can die. But how microvita die naturally, we just don't know how long it takes, how long microvita live before they disappear. But if we knew that, that would answer a lot of questions. We just don't know the answer. They're created by the cosmic mind. They exist and do different activities. And at some point, they probably die or get absorbed by something else.
Maybe. I think we had a conference also with Didi Konika, and so maybe we can invite her to say some few words. She said something in the chat.
That would be great.
Can you put in your mic?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yeah.
Namaskar.
Sorry, I've been Namaskar, Dada. I've been coming in and out a little bit late and stuff, partly because of the time, but also because of my connection. First thing, I'm a little bit aware. I'm certainly aware of the experiment that you're wanting to carry out, Dada. And I just, Rudresha, I think it's a really good idea. I am also thinking, how can we find ways where we can measure microvita in any way, shape, or form? And the idea of creating microvita is very exciting. So, however we can do this, some of your thoughts about how to go forward with a microbiologist who's got that kind of curiosity. There is the journey to the microcosm, which is Hank, who's I think they're pretty open. Hank and his team in America, I would look at perhaps trying to start that conversation there, because they've been doing some pretty cutting edge stuff with microorganisms, not physics so much, but what I know of Hank, he does crash courses in physics, chemistry, and all that sort of thing. I've forgotten his surname, but easy to find this guy on YouTube. He's one of the leading teams with the journey to the microcosm, and it's a very interesting world to look at. That's biological, microscopic world, but because it's looking at proto-organisms, single cellular organisms, and how they jut us fodder in a sense, this conversation about Jadasvara also is very interesting, and also how they absorb. I think it might show us how Microvita looks, because there's many single cellular organisms that absorb algae, and the algae continues to live inside them, and it's almost like it looks like the cosmos in microcosmic form. It looks like the way that galaxies can sometimes absorb whole systems of stars and use that material to then generate Jadasvara or a whole new solar system, whatever. So it looks like the macrocosmic and the microcosmic occur in very similar ways, and that this is a very exciting time to be discovering this.
It is. It's a great time for biology now, that people are thinking very different ways than just Darwin, because there are a lot of problems people recognize, like why so many species happened within 10 million years during what's called the Cambrian era, like 10 different classes of animals evolved very rapidly, and there were no apparent precursor animals found in the fossil record. They just appeared almost out of nowhere, and it's a complete mystery. Of course, they can try to make excuses, but the fact is they can't explain why so many phyla, different major animal groups, arose at the same time in a very short period of time.
So I'm like the previous question, first of all, the one before this question, which is around Jadasvara, and can there be a sort of Jadasvara of the mind as well as of cosmic? We tend to identify Jadasvara to do with big celestial bodies. But I do seem to remember somewhere, and I don't know if I've made it up, but I'm trying to look at this, that we undergo at times a slow Jadasvara, and I think it was called old age, that when your body starts to break down.
He said wear and tear. He used the term Jadasvara for gradual wear and tear.
Yes, and because it seems to me that, and just this little bit I put in the chat, it seems to me that the way that our minds and the universe works, it's always for not just the subtle, but for expansion, and that there's a longing for life to exist and observe itself. That's the way that I understand spiritually the whole cosmos works. It's a longing for the universe to look at itself, and it's almost this whole idea of the reflection of conception upon perception, or that we have the capacity to look back at ourselves and say, oh, look, I'm the universe. There's something like that happening. So whether it happens on a cosmic level or on an individual level, if we don't do that, some form of Jadasvara starts to occur. And in this particular one here, that's the source, Atman, Paramatman, and Sadhana, the second little paragraph I put into the chat, where Baba says, depending on conditions, either the unit structure bursts at this point, if there's no mind, or there's no intermolecular and interatomic spaces, they can't reduce any further. Either there's a bust, and then he says, or the mind is formed by a process of division and association of matter. Now, if that is what Microvita is, the mind forming by a process of division and association of matter, it sounds like cellular formation, doesn't it? Because it sounds like like what you were talking about, Dada, something comes, a bacteria, and then off it goes, like that, or like a cancer cell.
When Baba used the term division and association, that was before he had introduced Microvita. But he also said that if you powder down matter, you will get Microvita. And if you powder down Microvita, you would get idea. Which is more so. But I think those fit together.
So then one of the I've forgotten which scientist it was that I was looking at, but I could have a look. He suggested, what happens if, and he's sort of on the same thing, what happens if instead of looking for life out in the cosmos or in physics, And from what I understand, I was talking with someone about this yesterday. If we're looking in the world of physics, in the world of matter, then we're looking at negative microvita essentially, because positive microvita is socio-spiritual and negative microvita is physico-psychic. So if we're creating kind of negative microvita or matter microvita, let's call it, then will it help us to create a new life form, or will we, as you said, be replicating a bacteria that's recognizable? So that was my first question. Still, it's a curious thing to do. Why not do it? I'm wondering with coronavirus, has someone already discovered how to do this and created? Because the jury
No,
seems
they
still
haven't.
to be.
I mean, they've engineered the coronavirus.
Engineered it, Dadas.
That's they added a few things to something that was already there.
Yeah, so they created that whole thing. I think it's called CRISPR, where you implant a little bit more RNA
A little bit
inside
more
something that's already
into genes that already exist. But viruses can actually insert whole strands of DNA using, you probably know, reverse transcriptase, which is a molecule that comes with a virus, and it converts RNA into DNA and inserts the DNA into a gene, which is a little bit like CRISPR, but it's not the same as CRISPR. It's molecules themselves doing it without any human intervention. CRISPR is a human intervention process.
I think what you've just talked about, it came first, and then CRISPR picked up on that. The guys who
CRISPR is only like 20 years old or so.
Yeah. So all of this seems like we're sitting on the edge of microvita. It's starting to sound like, and from a sort of from the FDI, what is it, the Food and
Drug Administration?
from from
FDA?
a social, no, sorry, what I want to say is from a social point of view of regulation, from a regulation point of view, there's a lot of moral conversations about this right now. Do we have the right to create, to do this? Is one
ethical
area.
questions, the ethical questions.
The ethical questions on all of this, of CRISPR and everything.
That's true. That's a big question.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think also, Dada, at some point we might need to consider with the experiment at some point, not ethically because it's creating life, but ethically because we know that when we're dealing with matter, we're starting to play with something that can be negative microvita. And from my experience of negative microvita, just from a personal experience of it, it's a very heavy load for a human being to take on. It really, a collective mind and a lot of kirtan and all that sort of thing is really important to sort of factor into this as well. This is just, me thinking outside the box, because I have a sense that we're getting very close to something here. And I think knowing what we all know as being sadhakas, we need to kind of consider all of that as well as the excitement of creating life. Like, what life are we creating? So that was one thing. The other thing is one of the scientists that talked about what would happen if, instead of looking in the world of physics and chemistry, or in the world of celestial bodies to create new life, what happens if we go where obviously life already exists? And his suggestion was, we look at where we are, we're on the earth, and we look at what life is here, and we see if we can create or identify. He wanted to discover life here that's already doing it, self-replicating, it's creating its own kind of systematic biological machine, and it's running fast, and it's sort of unstoppable, if you like. So inside cells, that describes for me cancer seems to do that. And this little quote of Baba's that says, all mind is formed by a process of division and association of matter. I'm wondering if psychically we are already creating life when we think negatively and we get cancer. I know Baba says in Yoga Chikitsa, he says the cure for cancer is to think positively, and he indicates that cancer comes by negative thinking. And if I looked at a metaphor for cancer, it would be holding a resentment for a long time inside my stomach, or any of the areas that where hormones are produced, And
Well,
you know,
negative
maybe it's a hormone
microbiota
of-
control negative thoughts, and that would create cancer. So negative
Exactly.
microbiota go with disease, and you fight it with positive microbiota with positive thinking.
Yeah, well, that's in alignment with what Baba says. So Dada, I'm wondering if the experiment can even be done on ourselves. And again, this is pretty dangerous stuff, but you know, I always like people like Madame Curie or whoever who just went in the lab and injected themselves with crazy stuff. And you know, and found out about radioactivity or penicillin or whatever. It's sort of like, wow, cutting edge.
Yeah, the hard
personalities.
way. She died of cancer.
Yes, I know. You know, anyway, my brain loves heroes, and you know, this is a heroic conversation we're having to try to discover how to create microvita, or the emergence of microvita is very heroic kind of actions, I believe, spiritually as well as socially. It's a huge
To understand microvita is going to be a heroic job, probably by many people in the future, but we're trying to make steps. We can't just wait for someone else to do what we could do, even if we're just taking a baby step.
Yeah, so there's two areas. One is on ourselves with this whole thing. Can we look at cancer patients and see how, I mean, it takes a bit of deep digging, but I know people who sit inside 12-step programs and they do that deep digging into resentments and see that a resentment can cause social, but also psychic, also physical illness. Like, is there a way to, so I'm looking at that possibility also of learning about microvita and using ourselves as a laboratory. And Baba does talk about that in some of his writings. Then the second area, Dada, it's really outside the box again, but I want to just explore this at some time, maybe not here. You guys, you've been online for 2 hours plus. But the second place, the scientists talked about self-regulating, not self-regulating, but self-motivated, like self-reproductive, that's come out of a life form and it's gone bigger than that life form. Everything, the way he was talking, and I'll have to find exactly the quote, I do want to write a paper about this, but everything that this particular scientist was talking, he was encouraging, do it on Earth because life has already formed here. And he was suggesting that we'll find a biological life form that we haven't yet discovered. And again, going back to the journey to the microcosm with Hank, he seems to be sitting on the edge of just about doing that almost every day. If anyone has time to look on YouTube.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to know more about that. Like to know more about
curious. It's just, there's a whole channel on YouTube, and Dada, he seems to me to be almost creating real life metaphors for what we're talking about here, because the microcosm's doing what we're talking about. So that's another world. But then the third world that Baba, yeah, go ahead.
No.
Okay, the third world that Baba talked about, and this is outside the box that I want to talk about, it's the stock exchange. I don't know if I can jump anyone's brain to what I'm seeing, but human beings have become engaged, and Baba's whole work on Prout and his whole body on Prout, I think he was lining it up with Microvita, because I think the financial world that we have created, it's an idea. Money is an idea, we know that.
Yeah.
We have taken money to become a machine, and that machine is running, and it's running on essentially greed and pride, you know, or self-seeking. So it's running on the emotions or the thoughts of a section of humanity, and it's vortexing almost all of us into it. We cannot get away from the monetary system, no matter where we live, truly speaking. So,
but it's heading for a crash, it looks like.
Well, Dada, I wonder if this is negative microvita, like, you know, we know about some of the yaksha, for example, but there's a whole lot of ones that we talk about inside, you know, Prati, I can't remember all the names of the microvita terms. I haven't really studied them deeply, but negative microvita creates that vortex that sucks everything in its path into it, and then it condenses. And I wonder if that's what we're seeing when we don't regulate money and we don't infuse it with any, our financial systems have no spiritual, social context. They just become material. And that's what the mindset behind the idea of the financial world as it exists at the moment seems to be looking like that.
It's
So
just
I
pulled into
wondered,
matter. Yeah.
I wondered if there's a way, and I think it's Proutistic, but I wonder if there's a way to start to, how to say, we have, what I understand is the way that what our world is to look back at ourselves. And I think what Baba invites us to do with Proud is to look at the structure of ourselves as a financial being. This is very crazy thinking, but I think we're invited to look at ourselves as not just physical, psychic, and spiritual, but also economic, which is a psycho-spiritual or psychophysical. It's a psychophysical concept of ourselves. Is actually money looks like that now to me. If we look at ourselves and look at ourselves from the outside looking in, can we then see that we're creating a negative microvita inside ourselves, similar to cancer, but we're doing it inside our society, and it is growing, you know, and it will judder swatter or wear and tear the whole social fabric. Can we do that and halt it? Can we recognize it as a life form of negative microvita and change that? And I think that's what Proud's about. So I'm really puzzling about this at the moment, because it seems almost as important as, you know, stopping an arms race, for example, you know, bombing each other, because the series of crashes and the economic situations killing humanity possibly more quickly than the arms, what we do when we get into arms and war. So it's another world, and I know that pharmaceuticals is sitting very strongly in there, and that's all our medicine, as well as all of our social structures. It affects our housing, our food, our education, and so on. And almost every area, like the 2008 crash, that was the housing gone. This whole thing now that's going on with pharmaceuticals, that's a medical, you know, crash basically. So I'm wondering, can we look at the next life form to be financial, that we human beings created the next life form as a species? We evolved something out of ourselves and we didn't control it. It's still philosophical, but I'm curious about it.
Okay, well,
Okay.
keep looking at it. Keep looking.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Dada,
I would
maybe,
just like,
yes, okay.
I'd just like to mention that, yes, negative thinking and greed and all these things attracts negative microvita. So we don't create negative microvita within us, but we attract it into us, and it generates into disease and all these things. So the financial system, which is basically based on egoism and ego, as you explained, has become, and also with all its collateral of pseudo culture, brings up this whole culture. Probably the positive microvita, yes, will help change that situation. Think of love, of fraternity, of so that will be the magic. But still, I hope some research is done somewhere, you know, to see how these bacteria are made, which creates body. If that comes out, that will show how that mind, I understand easily the mind comes out of the explosion of matter, but now the physical body of a protozoic cell, how it comes up, how it is made. And that is, I think, the key question here today.
Yeah, I think these are interrelated, because if society realized that it's not based only on matter, but it's based on consciousness, that it will, the physical structure will just collapse of its own weight, because people will see through it. Right now, science is completely materialistic, whether it's physics or chemistry or biology or even psychology. People think it's just matter and energy, and that's a fake idea. That's supported by, you can say, the current power structure, which is a materialistic based power structure that will collapse if people just realize that it's not founded on reality. So people talk about a new science paradigm with consciousness being primary. That's what society needs. because there's a tremendous amount. I mean, there wouldn't be such a controversy about, let's see, between science and religion if their religion had something right about it, and science also has something right about it. But there's also dogmas in religions, and there's also dogmas in science. So the problem is with the dogmas clashing, not between science and spirituality. There's no conflict between science and spirituality, because spiritual science is science. It's dogmas that are clashing, and those
Yes.
dogmas are going to finally collapse if Prout comes up, if neo-humanism, spirituality, none of those are based on dogma. Dogmas will just sort of die a natural death, basically, when rationality and spirituality are shown to be valid.
Dada, can we take a question? There is a question on the chat.
Yeah.
From Brother Tarak. What is your take on the Hadron Collider experiment? Will this take us to demonstrate the existence of Microvita?
Not directly, not unless they have a hypothesis, because I mean they want to make bigger and bigger colliders, but they're not looking. Of course, anything is possible. Maybe Microvita will appear in the next experiment that they do. The next discovery will be Microvita. But their foundation is on matter, but Microvita are really what's fundamental to matter. So scientific experiments, sooner or later, they have to come to spirituality and Microvita. If Microvita are real, they're the next frontier of science. So they're going to be the next frontier of physics also. So maybe it will come out of the Large Hadron Collider.
From Mahadeva, is the placebo effect on Microvita in action? That is, we attract positive Microvita that cures the disease. Is there something called a placebo effect in Microvita?
Well, placebo effect is probably the action of positive Microvita, because when you believe positive and you get cured without medicine, that's what the placebo is defined as, people getting better without a pill. So Microvita are the explanation for placebo, the placebo effect. I think that's what people will realize. Placebo effect is about 50% of the cure of most illnesses. People trust their doctor, they trust the medicine. And that trust is often what cures them, and not the medicine and not the doctor. So placebo is a statement of saying we don't know the cause. But once you have a Microvita explanation, you don't need the placebo effect anymore, because you understand that it's Microvita that are the cause.
Okay, is there someone else with maybe one last question or one last remark before we end?
Yeah, just before we end, Dada, also in another one of Baba's discourses, he just talks about the element of time. He talks about when a microcosm develops as a result of the combination of the fundamental factors, it gains an awareness of the time factor. Time as the motivity of action comes within its micropsychic capacity of measurement. When the time factor has become linked with the fundamental factors, the developed mind is said to be functioning. So it's just another area in all of this that I'm not sure if we've started even sort of considering. But because Baba's writing about it, it gives a clue that there's the third element also to what creates mind. There's the 5 fundamental factors being in balance. There's the evolution of like that data spotter or heat, whatever it is that generates that change. And then there's this awareness, which I think again might be something of that self-awareness that we seem to have to develop. And Baba's putting time as a factor inside of that being able to measure our progress or measure our existence is a very important part to us knowing that we're alive or to us seeing life. It's curious. Huh?
It is. I think time is important. I think it always, as I understand it, always goes together with place and person, because time is the mental measurement of the motivity of action. And so you have to have place, because motivity means change of place, and it's the measurement of something. The mental measurement means there's the person doing the measurement. So time, place, and person are the three relative factors that go together. I don't think you could say time is more important than either of the others. That they all kind of arise at the same time. When individual mind arises, it arises with a sense of existence, and also time and place kind of helps us organize our experience to keep things from all being one. You need to have different time and different place to sort things out.
Yeah, there's something inside there with physics. I know Einstein started that when he did, you know, the theory of relativity, and saw that time warps with movement. But there's someone, I think, again, I can look it up and just send you some information, but I think it was Brian Cox did a whole series on the universe, and one of those was around time. And I think it was Brian Cox who started to show not just that as you go further away from the earth, you know, time, your clock changes and you age differently, and if you go to outer space, you come back on a different time zone from everyone else, like that sort of stuff around gravity. But I think there's a point where it starts to warp and it becomes almost cosmic, like it becomes spiritual. And again, scientists are grappling with what that warp is. And I think because we do sadhana, sometimes, again, it's subjective and objective, but sometimes through sadhana, we seem to take a quantum leap in our lives. And concertina, you know, psychically something concertinas, and everything around us changes. Like when Baba used to give mudra, at times it felt like we'd enter another whole, you know, everything just seemed to do that very, very quickly. And then it was usually followed on by a tsunami of events often. So I think there might be something even inside of that with Microvita that we haven't, for me, I'm still thinking in a linear way, like Sanchara, Prati Sanchara as a linear thing. When that element of time comes in, it starts to do that kind of whirlpool thing. I think Baba did a diagram about it, which I've never understood, but something about a spiral with some little leaps going through it. I've forgotten in what context that was. I haven't found that diagram again since, actually. It was a long time ago that I saw that, but it was something to do with Microvita, cosmic mind, maybe locus. It was very, very, it was very difficult to understand. And I'm wondering if we're getting closer to understanding that aspect to it as well.
Okay, so thanks so much. And we hope we're going to have a continuation.
Let's plan another meeting sometime in the near future.
Yes, definitely. Yes. And I think through this, we're going to encourage each and everyone to participate well, and maybe carry out some type of experiments from different levels. And this is what we badly need today.
Yeah, we need an experimental approach, because there's otherwise it's just a kind of dogmas pushing against other dogmas.
Yes. Okay. So, Guruvati, are you around? Guruvati?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So, do you want to say something in conclusion?
Not really. It's you just need to take a step and try to find a way to start some experiments, either in lab or physical lab, or our physical body also, that is our lab. And probably we need to either create a group, continue the discussion, and also in the near future, continue with the topic in some conference. So thank you very much, everybody, and thank
Yeah.
you, Rudresha.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. And take
Thanks
care.
so much. And, namaskar. Have a great weekend
Thank you.
as
Thank you.
well. Okay, thank you so much
Okay,
for your
take care.
patience. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.